It was then declared a massacre, having killed more than 8,000 Bosniak men and boys in and around the town of Srebrenica during the Bosnian War.
And ICC, International Criminal Court, organized itself, and cases started against the Serbs who could have done that, and especially the military, the Serbian army. And I was called to go to write a statement. In fact, I didn't go to The Hague that time. The lawyers requested to come and discuss it with me here in Nairobi.
That was the first of a series of testimonies that Colonel King'ori would give.
And I went to The Hague to give evidence against General Krstić.
Throughout the course of his case, Colonel King'ori traveled severally to The Hague, even after his retirement from the military.
In between, he had even gone to give evidence against their president.
The UN Criminal Tribunal eventually indicted more than 20 people for their involvement in the Srebrenica massacre.
General Krstić, I think he was jailed for, 30 years or something like that. General Ratko Mladic actually was jailed recently for life. The president of Serbia that time also was taken to the court, to The Hague. When I was just about to go and give evidence against him, and I was cleared, I was ready to go there, the guy killed himself in the cells.
Can get further details on our website. Now, tech companies have welcomed the move by government to abolish the digital service tax and the 30% local ownership rule. Amazon Web Services says the move is expected to lead to increased investment in the sector, which has been slow investment since the law came into force in 2021. Robin Giro, AWS lead for East Central and West Africa, says that the move will cement Kenya's position as an ICT hub in Africa.
Amazon Web Services, which is one of the heavy hitters in the cloud computing business in the world, had raised concern with the Finance Act 2020 that introduced a 1.5 levy on digital services, saying the move was likely to stifle the growth of the sector at a time when Kenya was settling as a preferred choice for global ICT firms. However, despite much hue and cry, the law came into effect in 2021. Robin Jiru, AWS lead for East, Central and West Africa, says the firm will seek collaborations with various players in the digital space.
Now actively engaging with the government to get a better understanding of how this will be rolled out. Once we then have that understanding, it then puts us in a much better position to then see how does that then impact the industry and subsequently the economy.
This comes as the company announced a new deal with the ICT authority to train and equip 10,000 students in public universities in Kenya with cloud computing skills and emerging technologies.
So that then as our tech/engineering students graduate, then they are already graduating with the skills in this area.
I think the future is digital. The future is jobs within the digital space.
We try as much as possible to match the expectations of the employers and the job market and what is coming out of the education.
There's a mismatch between the knowledge graduates possess and the labor market needs. Hence, the need to have qualified workforce that has the technical skills and knowledge to thrive in today's digital economy. Wairi Mujenga from Diani, Kwale County.
To the corporate briefs, a multi-agency team has been established to first track the distribution of the subsidized fertilizer to farmers this planting season. Cooperatives and Micro, Small and Medium Enterprise Development Cabinet Secretary Simon Chelagui says this is part of efforts by the government to increase food production by increasing access and addressing the cost of farming inputs such as fertilizer, pesticides, seeds and animal feeds. Here are the details of this and others from the corporate briefs.
Chelagui says reliance on imported food is unacceptable, when Kenya has the capacity to produce enough for local consumption and export. He says the government is putting in place relevant infrastructure and support systems to enhance food production. Chelugui says a multi-agency has been established to distribute the subsidized fertilizer in 21 counties.
Our desire as an administration is to invest in production, to empower stockists and distributors who are seated in this room, as opposed to empowering traders who are importing foodstuff.
Still on food security matters, Crops Principal Secretary Harsama Kelo says millers have been unable to find cheap maize at the international market to match the 4,200 shillings landing cost set by the government for a 90 kg bag of maize. He says talks are ongoing between millers and traders to increase the minimum landing cost of maize to enable Kenyan importers compete for the scarce maize in the international market.
Some of them have told us that price is too high. The dollar exchange rate is not favoring them. The maize availability is also a big problem because it is very scarce. So we are trying to negotiate, and we have agreed with some of them.
And the adoption and uptake of warehousing receipt system has received a shot in the arm following the signing of a 3 billion shillings deal between the Ministry of Investments, Trade and Industry and the International Finance Corporation. The 3-year deal will support drafting of a regulatory framework and setting up a central registry.
Farmers, from now on, if this system is operationalized, will be able to use their receipts, their WRS receipts, even to pay their hospital bills.
Elsewhere, the film industry requires a fine-tuning of acting talent to provide the flexibility and diversity required to meet consumer demand. MultiChoice Kenya Managing Director Nancy Matimu says besides leveraging on the digital space, Kenya's creative industry should learn their audience needs for maximum monetization and commercialization.
Access content, watch whatever content that you want wherever you are at, honestly and authentically, and showcasing the side of Kenya and Africa that many people or international platforms do not have been able to showcase.
Finally, the government will train small-scale miners on artisanal mining in a bid to enhance regulation and help alleviate unemployment. Mining Cabinet Secretary Salim Mvurya says the government intends to formalize artisanal mining through reforms that seeks to align the industry with the best global practices.
Ambao tunaunuia kutengeneza hapa mradi wa mambo ya mawe, tunataka kutafuta mwekezaji kuanzia wiki ijayo ili hii kiwanda ijengwe hapa kwenu.
Now from Kwale there, we delve into the sporting arena where Kenya will be targeting to select a formidable team for this year Africa Under-18 Youth and Under-20 Junior Athletics Championship in Lusaka, Zambia. According to the Director of Youth Development, Barnaba Korir, only athletes who meet the age and qualification time criteria will be selected during the national trials set for this Friday and Saturday at the Nyayo National Stadium. Kenya will be defending the under-18 overall title, which they won during the first edition held in Abidjan, Ivory Coast, as well as targeting the under-20 overall title. The top 3 athletes will be selected for all field events under the under-18 championship, while 2 athletes per event will be selected for the under-20 championships. The second Africa Junior and Youth Athletics Championships will be held in Lusaka, Zambia from the 29th to the 3rd of May this year.
The circular that we gave out, we were very strict, especially school-going athletes, that they must come with a letter from the principal of the school they are going in to certify, if they don't have this passport, to certify the document they use to enter the school, be it primary or secondary school, so that we document and verify that the document that we are having is a genuine document. Any other document which does not accompany the letter from the principal to the school they are in, then it will be subject to reconsideration, because we don't want and we don't entertain anybody or any coach or a teacher that encourages athletes to cheat, to give wrong ages, and if that is found for anybody to have done that, severe consequences will follow, because we will not allow anybody to lie about their age. We want athletes that are actually the right ages to compete with the others from other countries.
All the best to those who are aiming to be selected. Now, Moishes Nets at Team A and Akam 1 were crowned the winners of the men and women's categories of the Mombasa edition of the Red Bull Half-Court Basketball Tournament that was played at the Aga Khan grounds in Mombasa. Focus now shifts to Kisumu edition of the tournament that is slated for the 29th of April.
Tournament organized by the Kenya Basketball Federation in partnership with Red Bull Kenya was making a comeback for the 4th annual edition and saw teams fight for a qualifying spot to compete in the World Final that will be held in Belgrade, Serbia. In the men's semi-final fixtures, Moishes Nets A beat Storms 18-10, while in the women's semi-final matches, Kaya Tiwi C punished Kaya Tiwi A 19-4 to book a final duel with Kaya Tiwi D, which had earlier beaten Akam 2 17-7. Akam 1 will be joined by Kaya Tiwi D, Kaya Tiwi A and Kaya Tiwi C in the women's category, while in the men's category, Moishes A will be joined by Moishes B and the Storms who have qualified to play in the national finals. The qualified team from Mombasa edition will play in the national finals that will be held in the USIU grounds on 27th of May this year. The focus now shifts to the Kisumu edition of the tournament slated for April 29th.
Well, that effectively puts a cap on matters in the headlines this morning. Be sure to peruse our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke, for more stories and updates. Just stories that we are currently focusing on is in the development to the indefinite closure of Butere Boys School, as well as what is going to happen in the political scene following the conversation, or rather what President William Ruto yesterday said while he was in Rwanda, that there is no possibility of a handshake, while his opposition counterpart, that is Raila Odinga, has maintained that he is not interested in a handshake, but rather wants some of the suggestions that they had in regard to even bringing the cost of living down. And he maintained that the parliament route is not welcome. So what happens? You can get us on Twitter on KBC Channel 1. I'm Regina Manyara. I wish you a pleasant viewing ahead.
All right, thank you so much for staying with us. All right, so before we get into what's happening on our local dailies, over the couple of days, 2-3 days ago, there have been a lot of social media reaction as to what happened to the lady who was, captured on a video allegedly or attempting to commit suicide sometimes last year, and now the father to the late has spoken. I'll get you details shortly. All right, on the front page of the Star newspaper, Raila makes demands, threatens fresh demos. Raila makes demands and threatens fresh demos. Azimio wants talks similar to the 2008 National Accord discussions. Azimio wants talks similar to the 2008 National Accord discussions. The story continues there on page 4 and 5. Ruto in Rwanda for state trip. Raila visits the injured. The two gentlemen there, Raila visited some of the victims who were injured during demonstrations, actually who are currently admitted at the Kenyatta National Hospital in Nairobi. And of course, President William Ruto, while also speaking in Rwanda, said that he is not so keen on the kind of handshake that was witnessed during the Kenyatta regime. And any handshake is not what he is keen on. Okay, moving forward. Kenya fertility treatment too expensive, according to World Health Organization. The average cost of IVF in Nairobi is around 500,000 shillings for one cycle. And The WHO said that fertility solution, including the popular intro-fertilization, that's IVF, remain underfunded and inaccessible to many due to the high cost, social stigma, and limited availability in most developing countries. And that is on matters to do with health. I think that's a discussion that we can handle. What do you think?
Yeah, we definitely can.
Yeah.
I mean, and talk about issues of health or health matters and the cost of health, and you also clearly know that this regime is so big on health. In fact, it's featuring on their 5 key pointers or pillars, I should say, in regards to how this 5 years is going to be looking like. And should I also say that in the next national celebration, I think it's 1st June, it's going to have a health theme. It's going to be a health theme. So clearly matters of health are really close and pertinent. We keep saying all the time, if you have good health, that is the one thing you really need to be grateful over time for.
Absolutely. So be so sure that that's a discussion that we'll be having here on KBC Channel 1. Okay. Buteri Boys High School closes after cholera outbreak. That's another school in Kakamega County. Buteri Boys High School in Kakamega has been closed indefinitely following a cholera scare. All students were sent home after 100 students complained of stomach irritation that led to diarrhea. And now, actually, it was also visited by the governor of that county, that is Fernandez Barasa. That is the second school after Sacred Heart Mukumu Girls. Girls goes missing to collect a debt. 5 days later, she's floating in well. Where did humanity go, Kenyans? Where did humanity go? Where did humanity go? There is no day here on set that will ever pass without us talking about matters. Somebody killed the other person, this happened, a family was killed somewhere. Let's go back and trace our humanity. Where we dropped it at, we can pick it from there.
Life has become for sale now.
It's become for sale. I mean, she was only sent to go and collect a debt, and 5 days later...
She was no more.
No more. All right. Anxiety grips Raila team over fate of demo victims. Azimio leader Raila Odinga's move to shelve countrywide protest for dialogue has triggered disquiet in his opposition camp, with some questioning the plight of injured supporters. And now there is a growing feeling amongst the opposition leaders that the bipartisan approach that ended the 2 weeks of intense mass action is fashioned to only address the issue of reconciliation of the Electoral Commission. And now the deal is quiet on the fate of the victims of the chaotic protest. At least 4 suffered gunshot wounds. According to Raila Odinga, he said that some of the patients are having gunshot wounds in the chest. All of them are telling them that they were shot while they were unarmed, and they're not chasing, while actually they were not chasing after anyone. So in essence, Raila is saying that, the protesters were unarmed and the people who shot them are allegedly by police. Raila team, the talks we want with the president. You can take a look at that story. They addressed the media yesterday, and he said that in a statement, Raila, just a day after ceasefire with the government that ended the bloody mass action, the Azimio leadership said that the talks with the Ruto team should mirror the 2008 process, which birthed the Grand Coalition government. Is that where we're headed?
And are we seeing a scenario where on Monday we may be going for demos?
It's quite interesting.
This coming Monday.
You've also seen just after that presser, that Raila Odinga had yesterday speaking before members of the press, we have also seen counter-reaction, particularly from also the majority leader of National Assembly, Kimani Ichung'wah. When you talk about this National Accord of 2008, vis-a-vis taking the parliamentary approach into addressing some of these issues, I mean, it's really just a matter of wait and see. Wait and see how it will...
a game of cat and mouse.
Yes.
Toss this, I toss this back to you.
Yeah.
Now you see me, now you don't. Now we agree, now we don't.
Because also there are concerns that, on that Sunday, while both leaders addressed Kenyans, issues of cost of living didn't feature until yesterday, where Raila said that, in fact, this does not even require a committee. But you realize we have laws, because if you have to reduce even cost of living, you just don't really wake up and equally do that. It has to follow a certain structure and format into doing these things. So it's I give, you give.
Yeah, but now the conversation that I'm seeing here is Raila Odinga wants a handshake. If the president is saying no to a handshake,
Raila Odinga also said that does not want a handshake.
Yeah.
He said that yesterday.
How should we fashion these types of discussions? Raila is categorical that the statement by the president made on bipartisan parliamentary talks fell short of the issues that the two sides had allegedly agreed on before the Azimio call of the protest. So are we seeing a separate conversation going on? Should the Raila-led team approach it differently? Should the conversations change?
Basically, they had three issues.
Yeah.
The issue
Three key
of
issues.
opening of the server, cost of living, and now the reconstitution of the Electoral Commission. And according to Raila, what he said yesterday, the only thing that was addressed was the issue of the reconstitution of this Electoral Commission.
Yeah.
And that reaction and that press conference was necessitated by that disquiet from members of the public who said, okay, fine, we went to the street and protested because, one, the biggest issue was the cost of living. The common Mwananchi does not understand, if you ask me, the issue of electoral injustice or the reconstitution and the reforms. And some people are even saying that the reconstitution of the Electoral Commission is going to benefit the electoral leaders,
In fact, some are saying that, we have a whole 5 years to deal with this electoral reform. But you realize also...
But the immediate one...
It's cost of living.
Cost of living.
But you realize also, next year we will have the boundaries...
delimitation process also taking place.
So we need IEBC for that.
And remember, we have the IEBC Act.
And
it's also there. It has its own stipulations and its own modalities. Should we look back into that particular constitutional affair?
You see, even the question of IEBC, much as we are saying that indeed this is part of only what was addressed, still Azimio is taking issue with that, because this amendment act that was actually passed by both houses of parliament, they're saying that they don't have a stake in it. Much as, yes, the High Court had said that we need to reduce Parliamentary Service Commission members from 4 to 2, whereby each coalition was to bring its member. Azimio didn't really quite bring its
And I'm looking also into
this particular institution. And also there's really conversations around how the political class is still big on this selection panel in regards to what the High Court wanted to reduce. But that's not the case, because you have the Political Liaison Committee still having a member in this particular selection panel. But the biggest question has also remained, so what happens to this selection panel, which already had begun its process? Do we stop it? And again, also this means if we have to stop it, we have to go back to Parliament, because this is a matter of law. That is the IEBC Amendment Act, which is already...
And that is
so
what
that means we have to go back.
Opposed to. They are opposed to the entire process taking place in
Parliament. Because again, it's going to take time. It will take time to do this again.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, part of the demands that Raila was also talking about is that members of ODM or Azimio who decamped to UDA or to Kenya Kwanza, again, they are demanding them to come back.
They need to come back.
And seek a fresh mandate, so they say.
Seek a fresh mandate, it's going to be an interesting bit.
Now,
moving forward.
Because when you go to Parliament, as I said, still we have Kenya Kwanza having an upper hand. So why would you take...
Let me add one other spice to this particular pot of ours here. Because on the People Daily, we have yet another demand. Raila demands, and it's pictured here on this particular paper here, Raila demands action over police attack. Yet another spice on this particular pot of ours, Azimio coalition leader Raila Odinga has formally lodged a complaint with the police over attempts on, according to People Daily, on his life, saying officers skillfully and persistently shot at his car on Thursday last week. So the opposition leader's lawyers writes to police boss, that is Kome, over disruption of his entourage during the protests. You remember the pictures that were trending online about some of these vehicles that were there. Raila, through his lawyer Jackson Awele, said, however, that there was a reasonable cause to believe that the specific officers were acting in command of the IG, so they were complaining about that, raising concerns. And of course there was conversations about IPOA, about whether IPOA should come into these particular discussions. We have so many complaints and so many demands from opposition leader Raila Odinga. Will they all be met, and will they all be addressed?
Not quite. Having all the demands met would also mean that the government will be dancing to the tune of opposition.
Exactly.
I mean, you'll have to give your offer, you'll have to give your demands, but the government will also have a way to counter. Well, they may decide to, agree to all the demands, but that will look so bad on the face of the government. Talk of the issue of Raila calling for prosecution of the police officer. Now Koome said that the cop who was caught on camera firing tear gas inside the press car is now under probe. But now the gist of the story is, Koome singled out a police officer in civilian attire who was captured on camera breaking and smashing a vehicle reportedly belonging to the media during the protest on Thursday last week. And here the story goes. The officer attached to Kamkunji police station is still on duty and was among the 10 officers, listen to this, who were rewarded 10,000 shillings for well done job at the National Area Police Command. Over to you, Doreen.
This again is also coming at a time where still yesterday he said that if these things are not met, if these demands are not met, he promised the streets is where he will go to. Didn't say when, how, where, but he just said if they are not met. So it's just a matter of time. We really wait to see how all this will develop at the end of the day. Away from that, coming to the front page of the Daily Nation, still of course that has featured in there, and also what happened yesterday evening, the United States of America, in regards to the former U.S. president, that is Donald Trump, being arraigned there in court. We saw that 34 charges is what was hanging under him. Didn't address the press after that, but later on he came to talk to the press. But of course the details of that were not really previewed to that. But again, this is also coming at a time where the U.S. is preparing for its next general election coming up next year, and he's actually put forth that he's one of those candidates. So as in regards to all this that is still happening, he's still going to perhaps go forward with his bid of presidency come next year. But of course, the moment we keep getting details of what is happening, in the United States of America, as far as this 34 charges that had been charged to him and how it's developing, we'll continue to give you details of that as it continues to unfold. Also, President's big hustler nation headache. This in regards to matters of unemployment. You remember in the pre-election manifesto, this is what he had talked about, just looking for better ways to deal with matters of unemployment. In fact, looking at how his government could create at least 200,000 jobs annually. But going by what KNBS has just released recently, is that this number has been increasing over time since 2019. And what we had last year is that 3.3 million Kenyan youths out of a possible about 10 to 13 million Kenyans were jobless, and this number has increased with about 2 million going by this particular data. So we're talking of about 5 million or slightly above that Kenyan youths still currently jobless. But we also wait to see how the structure of creation of these jobs would look like, going by what the president promised in his pre-election manifesto. And also calls to Uhuru Raila on 2013 poll fallout. This has been well captured in that memo. If you've had a look at it, just going by what the former IEBC chair, or should I say IIC, that is Isaac Hassan, just making revelations as to what happened prior to 2013 elections, during and also after that election, before that particular commission was forced out. That is what the Daily Nation is covering for you this morning. And lastly, just before I toss it over to Ram, Pain, suffering as thousands go without pay in 20 counties. This is concerning the issue of cash crunch. The Treasury CS Njuguna Ndungu has told counties to just hold their horses a little bit, but truth be told, counties are suffering. In fact, just by this particular article, in Kisumu, this cash crunch has gripped the critical health sector, and just because of that, KMPDU have threatened to down their tools. Actually, they did threaten this on the April of 1st, that was on Saturday, going by what has been happening in this particular month, in this particular county. And this is also because of missing of those salaries for a span of 2 months. Now, that is in Kisumu, and the same has been replicated in other counties. And also going by what the Kakamega governor, who's equally the COG chairman in the finance committee, saying that this particular delays are indeed negatively affecting the counties. This also coming at a time whereby what really governors had asked for is not what is going to be released or disbursed in counties at the end of the day. Going by what was said is that there's really no enough cash in the national government. So really, much as they await this monies, quite a lot is happening in the counties as far as disbursement of finances is concerned.
Well, I want us to also take a look at one, of course, different angle from the stories that we've highlighted this morning. And this is in regards to the 2/3 gender rule. Victor, you remember this conversation has been ongoing for quite some time there. And even as we talk about the 2/3 gender rule, I know Doreen is advocating for such.
This was part of what the president sent to both houses in his memo, the 4 key pointers. 2/3 was one of them. So also wait to see how Parliament will be addressing these issues.
So members of the National Assembly have pledged to take a bipartisan approach in the latest efforts to achieve the elusive 2/3 gender requirement in Parliament. Now, while meeting with the East Africa Women's League, the lawmakers, including leader of majority, we have, that is Kimani Ichung'wa, Martha Wangari for Gilgil, Jared Okello, Member of Parliament for Nyando, Omar Mwinyi for Changamwe, and Alice Nganga, Member of Parliament for Thika Town, said that the current Parliament will make sure that the rule is realized. The question is, will they manage it? Well, now Ichung'wa, that is a member of Parliament for Kikuyu, said that they had embarked on the process of meeting the constitutional requirement. According to him, he said that as a father of four very beautiful girls, he said that he knows that when we fight for women's right, we not only fight and do it for them, but also for the society at large. And of course, President William Ruto had promised to work with Parliament to implement the gender law. Wangari, that is, said that women are now more empowered. Now, the constitutional provision has not been achieved for more than 12 years, despite various attempts by members of Parliament. The question is this time going to be different? The law was supposed to have been passed by the year 2015. 5 years after the enactment of the 2010 Constitution, but subsequent amendments to the 5th schedule of the Constitution by the members of Parliament says that the timeline extended. The members of Parliament were required to give effect to Articles 27(8) and 81(b) of the Constitution to ensure not more than 2/3 of members of the elective and appointive positions are on the same agenda. Conversations like this are what make Parliament to be hot, rather.
And it's going to be hot.
Yes.
Moving forward.
It's the bipartisan approach into this matter. There's something about bipartisan.
Bipartisan approaches.
Yes. Okay, on the front page of the Standard, simple. The truth on my deal with Ruto. You can take a look at what the Standard has for you there. The truth on my deal with Ruto. We have got Raila Odinga there. He's giving details on what is the truth between him and President William Ruto. I think that's capped up on in the headlines or what he had on our local dailies. Let's take a break and we come back We are still going to have that discussion, matters ICT and matters water conservation. The weatherman says on the Star newspaper, now that Doreen is going to be talking about that conservation and
water.
The issue, the weatherman says that expect more rain till May, says weatherman, amidst drought.
It's a good thing.
It's a good thing. I mean, it's here on the papers. Dr. Gikuru said that April will be the peak rainy month for most counties except the coast.
It is a good thing because you've been reeling with failed rain season. The downsides of this, and one thing I was even having this conversation with my guests prior, but of course will be telling us more about this is that anytime we have the failed rain season, we are reeling with drought. But now when we have the rains, we are reeling with floods. And the same when it comes to floods, Daily Nation has equally captured that as well.
And there you go.
Still,
so it's timely.
Conversations about whether our systems in Nairobi, our sewerage systems are well structured to handle all this water that will be flowing.
Still hard not to crack even for, the situation we are in as a city and all that. Anyway, Doreen will be handling that later on in the program. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. Good morning.
Kiswahili kitukuzwe.
Hapa tupo ni malisho, tumelishwa na sisi tupo tayari kulishana nao.
Sisi leo tumefika, tunaomba tusikizwe. Tozi ya tudondoka, tunataka tusikizwe.
Wanasema kwamba ukishindwa kuwaelewa, basi jua kwamba umewaelewa kwamba hawaeleweki.
Shirika la reli la Rwanda lilishirikiana na shirika la reli nchini.
Makofi kwake jamani.
Ninakiri yale uyatendayo, hakika wewe ni mwema. Kiswahili kitukuzwe.
Olegario, I see you're a very successful man. You practically have all that a person may want in life. Tell me, why are you looking for me? What can I possibly have that interests you so much?
Everything is in motion now. His health will start to deteriorate slowly but surely. Olegario doesn't have much time left.
What did you say? What is wrong with Olegario?
You still haven't told him what you wanted to say yet.
It doesn't matter. What matters is you found him, and he found you, and you two are together.
It's in your best interest for us to meet.
I don't think we need to meet.
Please don't refuse so quickly. Mr. Lin, why don't you pick a date and place?
Mr. Bai, you're too serious, really. Don't be so serious. Can you relax a bit?
How can I relax now? Pretending that we're just friends?
Yeah.
As I tell you truly, You'll never find a love like mine, no matter where you go.
I'm living a dream, yeah.
Oh, pretty me. My face now growing a tree. Oh, pretty me.
Today is the last supper for some people, and tomorrow before the cock crows, 3 times. Kuna wenye watakuwa wamesema mimi sijui. Mimi sijui. No idea.
Don't want association with a national criminal.
Yes, with a national criminal. Yes.
You know, Swahili women don't fight with fists. They normally fight with lessons. So you make them angry, they go inside, they say the lesson. And then you just read what you want to read to go back inside.
That is so peaceful. I can't say the same for peaceful war. Let me not say anything. And that's my community.
The kissing.
At a certain age of 40, maybe you get more irritable, your periods get irregular, and you know, moodiness is there. Hot flashes can actually be felt. Somebody just says, I feel hot, I'm not sick and something is happening. That's the perimenopausal.
So menopause is just not one thing. There are actually 3 different stages.
Yes.
And there's you said the
perimenopause, menopause, and the post-menopause.
Once you grow old, these people keep forgetting, they don't know what's going on, and people take you for granted. Like, you know, as long as it's her and she's at that age, she'll forget a lot of things. So people tend to bypass you and talk to somebody else, because this one is, huyu atasahau, sasa amezeeka.
I mean, ladies, intelligence doesn't mean you're wise. This lady is going to be with you regardless of where you are. You've seen mothers crying out there. Nobody else comes. Honor her. Number 2, spoil her. Even if you're 1,000, you send her, you say, Mom, buy yourself a soda, feel good. Just spoil her. Because guess what? She cut short her teenager or whatever life she did to get you.
Welcome back and thank you so much for staying with us. Being a Wednesday, we talk Matters Viewpoint, and today we are focusing on Matters Technology and Digitalization. Remember, there is that summit happening down in Kwale, in Mombasa, where it's it's all about technology and digitalization of our actually embracing ICT in our current world, and that is being spearheaded by the government, with several stakeholders coming along to actually to showcase whatever they have and how as a country we can also embrace ICT as at now. Now, it's taking time at a time when the national government is also so keen on matters ICT. Remember, the president said that in the next few months to come, over 50,000 government services will be online, and that is the way to go. And on set, to help us talk about this issue, I have got Sanar Shah, who is an ICT expert with international and regional expert on matters ICT and technology. And we just want to talk about matters technology and how do we start honing technology from young age. He is also a CEO of Moringa Schools. Therefore, we need to talk about matters ICT. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Victor.
You are part and parcel of that summit happening in Mombasa. And it comes at a time when, again, when you look at the entire picture, the entire government from actually counties are also represented in that summit. What did you pick from that summit in Mombasa?
Yeah, thank you. I spent 2 really action-packed days at the Connected Summit.
There's a lot of momentum, a lot going on. A lot of hope for the future, and the big theme this time, in previous Connected Summits, we've been talking about infrastructure, connectivity, mobile phones, but now the dialogue is about income generation, it's about education, it's about digitalization, it's about digital jobs and the future of work.
Yes.
So for us, we were really honored because as Moringa School, we announced three things which relate to the topic that we're talking about. Firstly, the president on Jamhuri Day announced what is called the Jitume program, which is to equip at least 1 million of our youth with digital skills, and as part of that, the Ministry of ICT is providing virtual desktops to TVETs across the country, and Moringa School is a TVET. So yesterday we signed an agreement with Konza and the PS of ICT to join that program, because what we've been doing here in Nairobi as Moringa School, now we can go across the country. Secondly, we participated in a panel which is about the future of work, and the PS of ICT has mandated Moringa School to drive this roundtable discussion to look at what are the digital jobs available across the globe, not only in Kenya or in Africa, but across the globe. There's as many as 8 million vacancies today as we speak in digital jobs. So he's mandated Moringa School to go and look at what are the exact skills that are required that are in demand, and then to now work backwards to see how can we innovate to meet that demand. And third, we also signed an agreement with Amazon Web Services, which is AWS, because now everything is going to the cloud. So we are now the second training partner here in Kenya, where we not only provide the training but certification. So we're really embracing this momentum for digital jobs and make it a reality.
And apparently this comes at a time again when you look, you've given a very huge number, 8 million available jobs online, but are Kenyans so much aware of these 8 million opportunities for them?
So it's still early days. In fact, just yesterday I saw a headline in the papers where today, again as we speak, there are something like 3 million unemployed people in Kenya, of which more than half, so more than 1.5 million are aged between 20 to 29. So these are our recent graduates who unfortunately are coming out with degrees, with diplomas, but there's simply not enough jobs available for them here. On the other hand, as this Gen Z is becoming more tech savvy, post-COVID, everything has gone online. Availability of smartphones is growing. Joining all these different OTT platforms, so that is educating our youth in terms of what is out there. And also we're seeing this development of the gig economy, doing gig work. So we have many graduates who are in digital jobs here, but they're joining platforms like Upwork, at TopTal and others, where they're able to find like freelance working for the US or Europe or anywhere, and they're getting paid in hard currency.
Why the international communities? Why not locally?
So of course, locally there's a lot happening as well. I mean, we know what's happened to the global economy over the past few months, and last year when markets declined, globally the what is called the venture capital funding for startups, it kind of halved across the globe. But in a country like Kenya, it actually grew by 6%. So that means, for innovation, there's enough interest, enough support coming. So locally there are opportunities as well, but you have to remember we are only a population of 50 million, whereas we're an opportunity as Kenya to serve the globe, which is a 8 billion population.
Yes. What does technology mean to you?
So technology is, for me, it's a tool. We've come through the industrial revolution. Now, with AI and things like that, we're looking at the fourth industrial revolution. So technology is a tool that enables us to be more productive.
Yes.
But there's all this talk about will AI or machine learning replace us as humans? I'm a believer that whatever we do, the human interaction will.
Pray that even in the coming future, we'll drop our conventional ways of doing things and probably start embracing technology. Even send somebody, go and cook for me tea, and tea cooks itself. I mean, go buy for me bread. There's a robot going to the shop to buy for your bread. But much as that is going to be happening, when you're in Mombasa and attending the Connected Summit, what did you pick from the government's point of view, the government's hindsight, the government's intention in terms of embracing ICT and probably cascading it down to the counties and to the schools?
Yeah. So I think first of all, our government is very progressive. We're very progressive as a country. We got a chance to leapfrog many things. When it came to the introduction of mobile phones, we really embraced that. We have a very high penetration of that. We didn't need landlines. When it came to payments, we have globally the best payment system in the world, which is M-Pesa.
Yes.
And now the way the government is thinking is as far as positioning our youth, our talent to participate in this fourth industrial revolution, how can Kenya take a leap forward? So starting with making all the government services digitized. You mentioned as many as 15,000 of our services being online. So government is very focused on that. They know that they can't do that alone, because to be able to do that, they also need to transform the way the government personnel that everybody's working. So that means skilling is very, very important. So I think the big theme for Connected this year is all about skilling and how can we make sure that we're ready to embrace and use and develop all
and we
these
talk about
online
skilling.
applications.
Perhaps a majority of Kenyans tend to get this notion or start to embrace ICT at an advanced stage, when it's now too late for one to grasp what ICT is all about and what technology how it can transform lives. So at what point should one start to embrace ICT? So, you've just said that part of Moringa School, you signed an MOU with the government?
Correct. So, Moringa School has been around for the last 7 years. So, this is well before this revolution for digital skills, started growing. And it's only sort of the last, maybe post-COVID, we've been talking about this more. But, we've been at it for much before that. So, we are the experts in providing quality, digital skills. And the way Moringa was set up, it was actually set up by a young American lady called Audrey Cheng, who came to Kenya back in 2014 and saw an opportunity and a gap to train tech talent. So what we are a TVET. We are providing vocational education. So in this day and age, to be successful in a tech career, one does not necessarily need to go to university to have a degree or a diploma.
Yeah, you can go to a TVET, and actually even the government is quite keen on that as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we are providing vocational training. So we are set up to basically take high school leavers who don't necessarily want to go to university. They come to us. We provide intense 5-month boot camp training, either in software engineering or data science. And so we are taking students who have the basic capabilities. They've got decent grades from KCSE. They're proficient in maths and English, and all they need is have access to a laptop and some data.
Again, that calls for a serious change of attitude. I mean, changing attitude at that particular point, somebody who was not given that early foundation on ICT, that creates a very big platform for that person to have a change of mind and attitude and accept ICT at that particular stage.
Yeah, so Victor, I think again the government is very advanced and forward thinking in this.
Yes.
And we always lead by example. About end of last year, the Ministry of Education, they have now allowed coding to become a mainstream syllabus, for schools. And this is where also Moringa is positioning ourselves, because we need to start earlier, because the earlier we start, then we have ready fresh talent that we can polish up. So we as Moringa School, we're already running coding clubs for schools. We have a specific curriculum that we can teach in secondary school. So from the age of say 12 to 18, we're able to provide that. But also we're partnering with some edtech organizations who can, using a tablet or a smartphone, they can start teaching concepts of like Python language or Scratch from as low as the age of 5.
Python language? Did I get it right? Python language.
Correct. So
that's not what technology is all about.
So very soon in the future, when you're teaching your kids English or Swahili or French or Mandarin, a coding language like React or Python or Ruby will also become part of what these kids right from nursery school start to learn.
Give me the future of the talk of even my degree is saying Python. Okay, give me the future of this generation. The future of this nation 20-30 years from now, if the current generation fully embraces ICT and technology.
So, at the opening of the Connected Summit, our Prime Cabinet Secretary, Musalia Mudavadi, he made remarks to say that there are 3 things to take away from this Connected Summit for the future. He said one was growth, second was sustainability, and third was equity. So, 2030...
Growth, sustainability and equity.
Yes.
Okay.
And that means that you can be successful in a career regardless of your background, regardless of your gender, regardless of your geography. So yesterday, panel discussion, we had one of the county people from Mufango Island in
Homa Bay County
in Lake Victoria, and he was quite passionate about saying that that is for him the center of the universe. So we were imagining a world where you have a young mother coming from Mufango Island, is qualified as a software engineer, trained by Moringa School online, learning on 5G provided by one of the telco operators. She's doing transcripting or data analysis work for some company in Japan. We were saying, is this something that we're thinking 20-30 years ahead? But actually what I'm saying is we're able to do that right here, right now. As Moringa School, we have, so before COVID, we had a campus model. So we had a campus on Gong Road. But during COVID, we really invested a lot in tech. So today, as we speak, as many as 80% of our students are actually studying online. We're employing something like 100 tutors, and we're doing live learning. So we have students coming from Homa Bay County or from Kwale or from North Rift, and they're studying from the comfort of their homes. They're doing daily learning all these languages like Python, etc. And then we as Moringa School, we're very outcomes driven. So our graduates, after 5 months of graduating, we are able to find them some job opportunities either locally or globally. And we currently have a 75% job placement.
Where's the level of Kenya? When you look at the level of, in terms of where we are compared to other nations, the Connected Summit is happening in Mombasa, and we have got international investors as well. We have got, investors, we have got innovators attending that summit. When you look at Kenya and other nations, where are we?
So Kenya has a lot going for us. If we look at an advanced market like South Africa, unfortunately they're going through their own issues, with all the power blackouts and some of the economic issues there. A country like Nigeria with much larger 200 million population, they're also going their own issues there. Countries like Egypt, they've also come out of a lot of trouble. All these countries like Nigeria, Ghana, Egypt. Last year they went through a big forex crisis. So if you look at in that landscape, then Kenya has really benefited. Up until now, like our foreign currency has been quite stable. All the international investment is coming here with all the startups, etc. Last week we also participated in the American Chamber Summit, which was driven by our U.S. ambassador, who is a big veteran in tech, and to have people like that placed in Kenya, there is definitely a lot we can leverage to really leapfrog and position Kenya as just like M-Pesa we did with M-Pesa.
Yes, and it's all begun here.
It can be done here.
Yes. Look at the situation, for example. So we are Kenyans, we are working, and then all of a sudden pandemic happens, corona happens. It was quite alien to almost everyone, including the government. But nonetheless, work had to continue, and that is now the point where Kenyans realized that, oh, wait a minute, we have to work from home, but how are we going to do it? Then technology kicked in. How do we hone that aspect of instilling the discipline and embracing ICT so that we are aware and ready for any eventuality like that happened during corona pandemic?
So I think, first of all, we're lucky and blessed to have the right infrastructure. Last week, Meg Whitman, who's the U.S. ambassador, she said there are three things that make Kenya really stand out from rest of Africa or rest of the world. First is our infrastructure. So the 4G, 5G internet that we have now available across the country. Many other countries don't have that. Even if you go to some of the European countries, they're still quite behind.
Yes.
So we're quite progressive in that. Secondly, it is our payment system. So the reason why Corona we got away lighter compared to some of our neighbors, like Uganda was in a much longer lockdown, and that did much more harm to the economy. Whereas for us, we quickly transitioned. People started selling things, even the mama bogas and all.
Kenyans are innovative.
Yeah, exactly. We're innovative. And then the third is our education system. Is still very strong. Our primary, secondary, of course, universities have some of their pros and cons, but that's where TVETs like us come in to fill the gap. So I think with those three key pillars, we can really position Kenya to really advance.
Let's talk about the education bit of it, because there is that aspect of CBC now taking center stage, and it's taking a whole new level because students have now to be equipped, all-rounded. Because when we talk about CBC, we talk about, forgetting about the white-collar job, because a majority of Kenyans should leave, high school, go to campus, and then start looking for white-collar jobs. So how do you link the two, ICT and CBC? You said that as Moringa School, you are so keen on ICT. So how do you merge the two so that you marry them?
So, education is not only about technical skills. So, even us at Moringa School, for our 5-month or 20-week bootcamp training, we train at least 3 weeks on what we call soft skills. So soft skills, they range right from teaching you how to, write good CVs, to interviewing skills, to communication, leadership, and entrepreneur skills. So, we make our graduates, as employable or as entrepreneurial as possible. Livelihood is not only about white-collar jobs, as you say. Kenyans are so entrepreneurial as well. So if you rather than going for a job, if you look at starting your own company or on your own startup, then you can imagine how many more jobs you can create as well. So I think certainly there are certain things that we're getting right in the higher education, but in terms of the intake that we get, our primary, secondary education is still quite traditional, quite theoretical. So I think with things like CBC, we hope that our youth can be taught not only how to read a book or how to pass exams, but how to
I'm quite
think for
interested in
themselves.
understanding what runs in the minds of the youth, because again, when you talk about technology here, On the Standard newspaper, again, he says that embrace technology and digital jobs as universities have been urged, and universities is using, most actually universities are now using Career Week to expose students to opportunities in the job market. Now, when you look at the preparation of students from, from primary to secondary to university, a majority of them are not quite ready to face the world out there. Some of them would be like, I have my papers, but I still need to go to the office. You talked about 8 million job opportunities online. So how do we start changing the entire, attitude of the graduates and the youth so that they can start finding these opportunities online? How do you talk to them? How do you convince them?
So it is all happening, right here, right now. So as I said, the PS of ICT has mandated Moringa to drive this roundtable to look at what exactly those 8 million jobs are. Are they for front-end developers? Are they for back-end developers? Are they for data scientists? Are they for product designers? Are they for cybersecurity? So once we quantify, these are the jobs in demand, then we can go and adapt our curriculum to really to churn out that kind of talent. Secondly, it's about market linkages. We at Moringa, we are also big on innovation. So we're currently deploying a platform called Moringa World, where we're also churning out thousands of our alumni and our graduates. And once we graduate them, we don't stop our relationship with them. We want to have a long-term relationship with them. So through Moringa World is a platform where they can come in and do further upskilling. So somebody can come in and train on AWS certification on, say, cloud computing or cybersecurity or AI. We also are linked to many talent matching platforms for online jobs. So there's one which is Ethiopian origin, but is deployed all across Africa, called Gebea. So we're partnered with them. So what they do is they vet our graduate skills, and then they see, on the other hand, where's the demand. If say someone in the US wants a front-end developer with React experience or Angular, then they can match make that.
Okay, let's come back home and start talking about the youth now. The issue of capital is always a big problem. Somebody say, okay, I need to start a cyber, but the issue of capital is always a problem. And the skills are there. Skills, you need to hone them, you need to train, you need to refresh almost on a daily basis. And some of these things, if you don't have refresher courses, most likely you'll forget faster. So how do we as a nation ensure that the youths are well equipped, and even the issue of capital is also available for them?
So, Victor, I wish I was a youth in this day and age, because, the tools and opportunities that are available for us Kenyans, it's just unthinkable. We talked about education. So, for example, the courses that we're offering, since last year, we've partnered with the leading boot camp in the US. Now, if a student were to enroll to do that course in the US, it will cost them something like $18,000 for a 5-month boot camp. We're offering that same course here for less than 1/10 of that price, so at about $1,500 here, which if you look at the starting salaries, the payback is actually very, very fast and very quick. In terms of access to finance, there is so much support here to help startups, get
even
some
from the
initial
government itself.
So government, they're also advancing the startup bill. There's SME financing available here. There are other charitable organizations who really want to nurture innovation. So there are grants available. So for example, we as Moringa School, we run what we call hackathons. So where we invite the youth to really come with solutions for really pressing world problems. We get those evaluated, and then there are prizes in terms of funders who can come in and give that capital. So the whole support is available in a package. It's about just making sure that parents and students they know where to go and how to guide.
Okay, you've talked about parents and teachers, but then the two will always go hand in hand. We have the students who are supposed to be equipped, the youth who are supposed to be equipped. So what is the role of the students, the parents, guardians, and the government, so that the youth is well equipped? At the end of high school or university, everything is okay for that person to start his or her own business without going back and start looking for white-collar jobs.
I think I would just summarize that in just one word, which is mindset. First of all, parents need to be more forward-thinking. They should be open to making sure that their children are not just stuck with the traditional ways of doing things, like that they follow careers to become, say, bankers or accountants, or of course we need doctors and nurses, but and not just be focused on getting a job. I think entrepreneurship is big here, and if you look world over, some of the most successful entrepreneurs are actually university dropouts. I'm not to say that that we should set that example, but then also for the youth themselves, we need to move away from being spoon-fed to really making sure that we take charge of our own destiny. And I think our teachers and our schools need to drive that kind of mindset thinking, and with Moringa now working much closely with the schools, with the government, we can really help to change and shape the agenda.
Okay. Let me get this from your own perspective and understanding. As a CEO, as a somebody with technology at the background, when you talk about entrepreneurship, for somebody who doesn't understand, it could be a big issue, but what is there in terms of entrepreneurship in technology for that person to understand?
So these days you can't really be a successful entrepreneur without embracing technology. Even if you're a farmer or you're doing logistics, to become more efficient, you need to leverage. So there are many examples where successful farmers are for example, using technology to look at weather patterns, to look at crop insurance, to make sure that we're not just driving our destiny with luck, but we're taking hold of it. So I mean, we're lucky to have the rains, but imagine the drought period that we've been through. If you are a successful entrepreneur, you would have already gone on your smartphone, looked for the best weather or crop insurance product, and protected yourself. So a successful entrepreneur is one that not only focuses on technology, but uses technology as a big part of what they do together with human capital.
Is it rewarding?
Absolutely, it's rewarding. I mean, first of all, in terms of reward is money, right? It's about what marks.
But in this case, the first thing that will run through the mind of someone is money. How much am I going to make when you monetize your technology? Yes.
So money is it, but the question is, the reward comes from are you solving a world problem? So we at Moringa, we are solving a problem in terms of providing quality digital skills to position Kenya to be as a key driver and partner in the global workspace for the future of work. So if you're a farmer, how are you changing livelihoods? How many farmers are you employing, or how many logistics people are you employing? So reward, you need to look at a bigger picture just beyond the initial reward.
The Ministry of ICT is quite close to us as a Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, and when you were attending that Connected Summit closely compared to those other summits that we've had in the past, what did you learn? Have we made leaps and bounds? Have we progressed? We had 2-3 years of lockdown due to pandemic. Have we recovered from that? What have we achieved up to this particular point, and what is the future?
So, the Connected Summit, you're right, it came back after a break.
Yes.
But it was, really good to see the big players being there. AWS is there. They announced in partnership with the Minister of ICT to train 10,000 cloud practitioners, and we're also, partners of AWS. We had the big tech providers like the Cisco's, the Dells. Of course, we have our local providers like Safaricom. But there are also many upcoming startups who are showcasing the work that they're doing. So I think definitely the momentum is there, and Ministry of ICT is looking to see how can they support for that sort of economic growth to be even faster, using the digital skills, but then also using their centers that are out there because the dialogue is not only about using these centers for doing the education or the training, but how can gig workers use those centers to actually do their businesses. So that is really forward thinking.
Absolutely. And to the youth, what's your message to them? You've been there before, you've seen the fruits, you've seen the advantages, you've seen how technology has helped you to be where you are right now. You're a CEO. What would you talk to the youth?
Mine is, don't follow traditions. Really, my message is take bold steps. Don't be afraid of taking risks. Obviously, take calculated risks. But embrace education, and education is not only about getting the next degree or a certificate or a diploma, but go on online training. Polish up your soft skills. Look at how you can improve your presentation skills, or look at how you can improve your teamwork or leadership skills. And then also in terms of technology, that's becoming key. So like if everything is going online, the biggest threat of everything being online will be security. So actually, as we speak, one of the biggest professions in demand are cyber security talent.
Yes.
So look at the trends that are there, and then the sky is at your fingertips, because you can become a cyber security expert or a cloud expert in a matter of weeks, if not a few months.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm so happy that you've talked. I mean, the issue of us as Kenyans moving to the next level, we had our fair share during the pandemic, and now that you're in Mombasa, connected that, I'm happy that even you as Moringa School, now that you have that partnership to train more youths to become more tech savvy so that they can equip themselves for the future. And of course, this year's theme is about the future in technology and how we're going to embrace that. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being part of that. Today we're talking about technology. We're taking a break, but when we come back, Doreen also has something quite interesting to do with our environment. What is that? Stick around for that one shortly after this. Good morning.
My name and take your money. Thank you for nothing. They also you thank you for nothing.
Who are you calling down the head?
What else should I call you?
You will stop calling me funny names. Unasikia? I will beat the living daylights out of you.
Fine. Nothing is fine until you pay me my money. You know that money was for something very important.
How much, if I may ask?
This is between me and her.
I will only take her hand if she gives me the phone.
In your nightmare.
Okay, in my nightmare, okay.
Ulipata safe house ya Sam. Niluka imechomeka. Is he dead?
Betu mwana hiyo? Kuna kitu hapo. Mwana hiyo baki jamaa yake ni bahati bana.
Imani hajakuwa kenda shule for 3 days sasa.
Nilipata ile lori ya juzi.
Tutatumia fake and break. 2 teams, stealth incursion, in and out in under 20 minutes.
Ukiharibu hii nyumbani.
As I tell you truly, oh, I love you. Can we fall in love like we did before?
She's so beautiful and true. She rocks my world. Don't call anymore. 'Cause I'm so fucking by you. And you found somebody new.
You'll never find a love like mine, no matter where you go.
I'm living a dream, yeah.
Oh, pretty me. My face not grown. Oh, pretty me.
Olegario, I see you're a very successful man. You practically have all that a person may want in life. Tell me, why are you looking for me? What can I possibly have that interests you so much?
Everything is in motion now. His health will start to deteriorate slowly but surely. Olegario doesn't have much time left.
What did you say? What is wrong with Olegario?
Today is the last supper for some people, and tomorrow before the cock crows, what is it, 3 times? Kuna wenye watakuwa wamesema mimi sijui. Mimi sijui.
There's a great
I have
beginner,
no
yeah?
idea.
Don't want association with the national creed.
Yes, with the national creed. Yes.
You know, Swahili women don't fight with fists. They normally fight with lessons. So you make them angry, they go inside, they try the lesson. And then you just read what you want to read to go back in time.
That is so peaceful. I can't say the same for
peaceful war.
Let me not say anything. I just my community.
Welcome back to the program. Right on time for our second conversation this Wednesday morning. Still keeping up with Viewpoint. We now train our focus to matters of water conservation. This coming in the wake of climate change. Right now, that is actually the conversation. Even as we speak, the third regional, climate justice conference is still ongoing. Supposed to be ending tomorrow, and also part of that is also what will inform our conversation. Even as we look at water conservation. I have created FaceTime for the same with Professor Julius Tanui, who is the CEO at Kenya Water Towers Agency. Professor, karibu sana to the program.
Thank you, Doreen.
Let's just get right into it, and just for purposes of creating context for this conversation, Professor, when you talk about water towers, what exactly are we alluding to?
Okay. Would you want me to introduce myself?
There's
okay, fine. I'm the Director General of Kenya Water Towers Agency. Kenya Water Towers Agency is a SAGA, or rather semi-autonomous government agency within the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry, which deals, or with the mandate is to protect and conserve, rehabilitate and secure the water towers of this country. By water towers we mean the sources of our water. And we're looking into 18 water towers in this country. The big 5, of course, are the ones which all of us know: Mount Kenya, Aberdares, Cherangani, Mount Elgon, and Mau Forest Complex. So those are the main water towers in our country. But of course, we have 13 more cassetted water towers.
Making a total of 18? So
in total, we have 18 water towers. So that is the mandate of this agency. It is tasked to actually protecting and conserving. If we don't do that, we don't do that, I'm sure sooner or later, it may not take more than 10 years before you import water from Uganda or any other country which has that resource.
You can imagine.
So it is. We can reverse it if we do it now. This is the moment to do that, and it's all of us to do that as a team nationally.
I hear you. So you're saying we can reverse all this if we do it as a team.
Yes.
And momentarily we'll come into perhaps what is being done and what more can be done to reverse these things. Because even as we talk about these things, we continue to deal with the adverse effects of climate change, so to speak. Right. But then you've said that the key mandate is protecting, conservation, and securing of water towers.
Right.
You also did say that, yes, 18 in number, but we have the big 5.
Right.
And of course, you did enumerate them. And so then I would ask, what makes this particular 5, big 5? What characteristics do they have?
The big 5, yes. I also say that 13 more.
Yes.
They could also be more because we are in the process of cassetting more.
Okay.
But maybe for the benefit of those who are viewing, to understand what a water tower is, maybe there's need for us to describe or maybe explain what a water tower is, probably for the benefit of the people.
Yeah, please.
What is it? Maybe that's a question you should ask me. Can I describe it? Probably because we have 47 counties in this country, and if you were to distribute the 18, we will find that some of the counties may not even have a water tower, even the way we are. But then each county may have, because water towers, I say the big 5 are the large ones, but we have even the smaller, which fits the description. And the definition of a water tower is an elevated geographical area.
They fit the description of what? A water tower?
A water tower.
Okay.
Because the 18 I've talked about, you may miss one in your county, right? You may not have, but you will have one which could fit your that description, and that is a water tower within your county. And you need to protect it, conserve it, and actually secure it. So, and the definition of that is a water tower is an elevated geographical area which allows infiltration, percolation, penetration, right, in areas, mountains, hills, and plateaus, which then allows the retention of water in underground, and therefore eventually releases this water to the rivers, streams, lakes, and oceans. So that is the definition. If you have that in your county, however small or big it is, that is a water tower. And you need to protect it, conserve it, secure it, and by any means necessary, protect it.
And this definitely comes from rain before it's actually released for use in whatever capacity.
Yes.
Now that you've already described for us what this is, and we also know where this water comes from for it to even be described as a water tower in the first place, I want to still understand what makes this specific big 5. What is so peculiar about this 5?
I think it's simple. Big in terms of the size.
Okay.
Big in terms of the amount of the biodiversity and the resources they have in terms of the trees cover within that water tower, and eventually the amount of water discharged out of it, and this can be measured. And maybe, for instance, if you can use Mount Kenya or let's say Mau Forest Complex, you find that Mau, for instance, has over 13 rivers coming out of it, and others even go beyond our country, transboundary resources. For instance, Mau River, you see, and many others, of course, which discharges water to Lake Victoria. So that's why it is known as Mau Forest Complex, right? So the size and the amount of water it discharges through those elements I've said, streams, rivers, and eventually to the lake. For instance, Mau Forest Complex, most of the water goes to Lake Victoria. Mount Kenya is a very good example again. You know how big it is, and it discharges water to east, west, south, and north, right? And of course, it is a unique water tower because apart from the precipitation it receives, precipitation means the rainfall received and allowed to be stored in underground. uniquely, and because of the climate change issues, we used to have, or rather we have ice, right, formation, because of the altitude of that particular water tower.
This is not Mount Kenya.
That is Mount Kenya. I'm giving you a unique example of Mount Kenya as a water tower. But then that has changed because of the climate change. We don't see the amount of ice which we used to see years ago, so many years ago. It has diminished because of the effects of climate change. But then, of course, it is a unique water tower because it uses ice, so that the ice now changes into, it percolates and it's retained in the underground aquifers and then eventually released to the streams and rivers.
So in simple terms, you can say that for Mount Kenya as a water tower, it is because of the ice that's where we get the water. It releases water. And that's what's peculiar about it.
Yes, but it's dual because also it receives rainfall as well, right?
Oh, right. So
yes,
it's a dual kind
of it. But it's unique in the sense that it is unique because it is actually has ice because of the altitude or actually positioning of it.
Yeah, you did talk
the
about
altitude.
You did talk about climate change as one of the reasons why we're not seeing that ice as was or as is, but we'll come to also that in a short while. I'm telling you, there's really quite a lot to discuss as far as this is concerned. But also, how significant are these water towers? Just why are they important? Because you can keep saying that we need to protect, conserve, secure, good for water, but then we don't need to sometimes and see how necessary.
Right.
You know, how significant are they?
I'll put another question to you. I don't know whether you've learned economics, but let me ask it very simple. If today you are asked to import water from Sudan or Uganda, even the water that you need to use for bathing, how expensive venture will that be?
How convenient will it be?
It will not be. So it shows how important it is to conserve and protect our water towers.
Yeah.
These are the sources of our water.
Yeah.
Ideally, Kenya is a water scarce country, and we look into the per capita water available for this country. You realize we are meant to, as a country, the standards are meant to be 1,000 meter cubed. But we are receiving 650 meter cube. So we are shy of around 250. We are looking into a situation, if we do nothing, in another 7 years, because 7 years estimated population of this country will be 68,336,000.
In 7 years?
In 7 years. That's 2030. That means the consumption of this country will go up. If we do nothing, we're looking at per capita, water available for this country will be 250 meter cubic, 235, thereabout. It means the gap by that time will be 30%, right? So, I started by saying, ideally Kenya is a water deficit country, water scarce country. You know that. We have almost half of the country having a failed season, a drought for over 3 years, and some parts like Mandera, 4 years, right? Half of it. Another part of the country which used to rain also has so failed seasons of rainfall, and ideally we had drought in the country. As much as we say, when you define climate, you say the phenomenon comes maybe probably after 50 years, but you see this as it may not take 50 years for this cycle to come.
We're already dealing with some of these issues.
Because of climate change. And we see it after maybe another 10 years. How sure are we that it will take even 10 years for this cycle to come? I'm not sure myself. So there is a serious challenge that we need to conserve and protect our water sources. In our definition, water towers. Ideally, it is watersheds of the country, which each and every country needs to do. What needs to do is to protect and conserve and protect jealously.
I hear you.
You go to countries that like United States, and let me tell you this, way back in 1919, and you could Google and read somebody known as Wick's Law. Wick's Law, and that's 119, and 109, the year, that's 1911, and I was calculating the years between 1911 and now. I don't know, simple mathematics will tell you it's more than 100 years. What they did is they realized, or rather they were in a situation like the one we have, and they went out of their way to make sure that they protect and conserve their watershed. And they even went to buy more land to
just for that purpose,
to be used, or rather expand the area of the watersheds in their country.
It's that important.
Known as Wickes Law. It's that important. Others realized over 100 years ago. We are there now. If we don't do it now, I think we'll perish.
Reasons well enumerated, Professor. How important, even just dating back to the example you're giving us from as early as 1911, you know, all of us were not there. But it shows you how significant it is.
My grandfather was not even there, yes.
I mean, clearly.
Yes.
But then from where you sit, do you think this knowledge is vast to that extent, that indeed it's significant to this amount and that's why we need to protect it? Do we have that insight?
Yeah, I see as a country, and that can be demonstrated very well by our leadership. The president has actually rallied all of us to pursue growing of 15 billion trees by 2032. And also growing of trees, 5 billion trees by 2027.
Yes.
That's another 5 years.
Yeah.
We're looking at 4 years to do that, right? It tells you, as a government, we have elevated that. And for us, and you know, 5 billion trees, humongous. It's not a mean job. It's something that is huge. But we have to do it. Because if we don't do it, as I said, we'll perish. But then, of course, it tells you the government has realized that. And I think we are there and the strategies are in place to make sure that we do that.
I hear what you say, and I'm so sure most of us are aware of what the government has said. In fact, the president has been very vocal about these issues of trees, to the extent whereby in the first national holiday we had in 12th of December, he said that even for the young people who are working in the Kazim Tani program in the previous regime, he's mulling over redeploying them at the Kenya Forest Service so that they can work hand in hand, so that we can see how we can, you know, plant trees. The First Lady has equally been very vocal on this. So it's very good to come from our leaders. But what I'm simply asking is that, do we as common Kenyan mwananchi know the importance of this? And the reason why I ask this, Professor, is because you'd get some good number of Kenyans saying that we have been hearing the stories of planting of trees over time, even since the times of Wangari Maathai, when he was so protective of our forests. But do we understand just how important, as a Kenyan, leave alone the leadership for a moment, but as a Kenyan, why this is very significant and important for us to do this? Do we have that knowledge? That's what I want to know from you.
Yes, I think we are getting there. One is because if the head of state is talking that way, and I'm glad you also mentioned the First Lady, and I think she has demonstrated that by actually adopting a forest in Kakamega, right? And I think the other day the First Lady also was hosting a first
Members of Parliament, wives of
the members of Parliament.
Yes.
It tells you how the President and the First Lady have taken the leadership in making sure
his birthday, that was her clarion call.
Absolutely. I think that was the birthday of the President when we rolled out the 15 billion. And when you take it, I think to me the President has taken it personal. And when you take it something that personal, it's very close to you. And he's rallying all of us, those of us who are in the leadership in the Ministry of Forestry and Environment. We will fail in our responsibility if we don't actually rise up to the occasion. So I think who else, if not for the President and the First Lady, to take leadership? And again, we've said it has been taken it to the wives of the members of Parliament around the country. This is a good thing. I think what you're actually saying is awareness.
Yeah, exactly.
I think in terms of the level of awareness, Kenyans are very aware. And we are talking about now, we are reminding, I think because of the level of literacy again has improved in our country, and therefore people read. The era of the social media is also here with us, and each and every information is released now, and many people will have actually read it. But it is concerned, and I think people have realized, first of all, even timber for use. Buying timber is very expensive, so people have actually understood that I need to buy firewood, charcoal, all these, fuel, energy to be used for cooking and all that. And all that goes to trees. But of course, it is a dual thing. So Kenyans are aware, I can say that. I think it's not like 5-10 years ago. And climate change is real.
Kenyans are aware.
Kenyans are aware.
But sometimes you don't see the efforts,
but then, by
the level of awareness.
Yes, but we need to play more.
Yeah.
I won't mind if you call me every month to come here. I will not tire doing this.
Discuss where we are as far as this is concerned.
And see whether we are moving to the next level.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to 2032, whereby if we will have planted 15 billion trees, we'll have taken this country to a level of 30% tree
How
cover.
practical is that? Just look at basically how you're explaining all these issues.
Yes.
Are there strategies? Because what the president said was very good. It's a good policy framework. It is a good statement. And looking at these issues we are constantly discussing, we are dealing with. And like I said, momentarily we'll look into all of them in a short while. So very good to say. From that ministry that you represent, environment, is there a framework for how we can achieve this? Because one would ask, what is the practicability of this 15 billion?
I don't know whether you came across a country which planted 1 billion trees in one day.
Which country was this, Professor?
I want you to Google. We have a country that did that, that is Philippines, in one day. I don't know whether you also know, I mean, various strategies, various countries have used different strategies, and they say the end justifies the means. It's possible. We have an end. We need to take this country to 30% tree cover, or forest cover, by 2032.
Are we past the 10% threshold?
We are past the 10%, but we've just made it 10%.
Okay.
Yes, and I'm sure also this one. And as again I said, it is your strategy. As a ministry, we have a strategy, right? And that strategy is shared across because we have many departments and sagas within the ministry. I have a responsibility to play, and my responsibility is to plant 500,000 hectares of trees within the water towers. That is my responsibility.
That's within the department you're in.
That's within, all right? But we have a shared responsibility.
That's part of the structure.
Yes, and that is not, it's not a small area, that's a big area. But it's a responsibility that by the year 2032, my state parastatal will have actually done that. We also need, we have
said for you is what, 5,000?
500,000.
500,000
hectares.
What's the time frame?
10 years.
In 10 years?
In 10 years.
Your department needs to have ensured that this...
It will fit into the same 15 billion trees.
Yeah, definitely.
I've been given that responsibility.
Okay.
And I will rise up to that occasion to make sure that 500 hectares of the degraded water towers, because the area of the water towers is 3.4 million hectares. I'm only talking about the degraded one, which is actually... did I say 500,000 hectares, right? So the level of degradation of the water towers, we have 600 and over 600 plus, which represents around 20% of the water towers. I want to do, or my strategy, or rather within that strategy, my mandate is to make sure that the 500 hectares has been planted trees. And then out of that still, we need 150,000 hectares to be planted bamboo.
Okay.
Which is good for the riparian.
This is within your department?
That's within. So each within the sector, everybody, Kenya Forest Service has a responsibility to play. Kenya Water Towers, Kenya Forest Service, those ones are moving day and night to make sure that they produce the seedlings.
Okay.
Right? We have other players. We have National Environment Management Authority to make sure that the swamps in this country are well protected. And what are we going to do in terms of rehabilitation of our swamps?
So for your department, just come my knowledge a little bit now, because let's move away from the bigger picture of national government. Let's come to the way you're saying different departments, in the parastatal. What is your framework looking like for this 500,000?
Of course.
To get context of how practical what the president keeps saying over time, perhaps would be.
Water towers, what you need to take into cognition is 500,000 hectares. It's not a very small area, it's a big area. And this is within water towers. Water towers, we are talking about 18, but possibly we have more.
There could be more than 18.
We are not limited to the 18. I've said we have also 71, which fits into the description that I've given, or definition of a water tower in various counties. We have strategy, and of course we have counties in this country, and these water towers are in various counties, and we want to partner with those counties. In the process of doing that, of course, we are going to grow trees. In the process of doing that, we require a lot of seedlings, right, in that particular area. Who is going to do that? Again, don't forget that we have the hustlers, and as a ministry, we ought to create jobs known as green jobs. We can't do it alone. I mean, my work force is around 186 people. They can do that alone. So we need to rally the people, particularly the youth and women. And we're looking into creating about 270,000 green jobs in that process. And this, more than that probably, because we're looking at so many counties. Actually, we're looking at creation of around 600,000 green jobs.
For this purpose?
Yeah, these are green jobs. These are youth who are going to do the pitting, you are going to supply the seedlings and plant, and then eventually monitor the growth, and scouts who are going to do all this. Because we are not saying we want to plant trees, we are growing trees. Growing trees is from the day you plant the tree to a process whereby it is actually a fully grown tree, right? Or to survival. That's actually the meaning of the growing of trees. Yeah. So two things will happen. We'll have attained the goal of meeting the requirement of the strategy of having 15 billion trees by 2032. We'll have created jobs for the youth, right? And also we'll have generated serious revenue to this country.
Yeah, because of also this job creation. And what you're saying is perhaps very good, and this coming at a time where KNBS has just released that statistics of how the number of joblessness has increased, and just saying that since 2019 that has been the trend. It has been an upward trend in terms of increase. Looking at what was last year, 2022, we're talking about 3.12 million Kenyans, youth jobless. And this, what they are trying to put into context, what the president had said in his pre-manifesto of creation of 200,000 jobs annually.
Right.
So when you say 270,000 green jobs, then perhaps we could be fitting into what the president did say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We are fitting into that. Yeah.
Okay.
And
I hear you.
don't forget about the revenue generation.
Yeah.
Right.
Again, a time when you're talking about increase of...
We used to talk about the 4 pillars. I am sure you know those ones.
Yes, I do.
And now people were asking a question of why are we missing out in terms of being one of the pillars, and we used to talk about manufacturing, housing and health and others, and we say environment was missing. But we said environment wholesome is a central pillar, and you can and therefore it fits into, and because it's a major enabler to the others.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hear you. Now there's something that you did say, that we are a water scarce country, and I just want to get to what extent, or what is the scenario of this water scarcity? How bad are we as a country?
I don't know. And there's nothing tribal about this.
Okay.
I don't know where you
this
come from.
This one that you began with a disclaimer.
But I don't know where you come from. But where I come from used to be a country which it used to rain almost throughout the year.
Also where I come from. In fact, the Meta said these areas, and I will mention them.
That's why I say I don't know where you come from. But if you come from a place where it used to rain and used to... Let me give you my history.
Yes.
I belong to an era whereby when you are going to school in the morning, you dash to the river to wash your feet and your face. Yeah. And before you finish, the water is stable and clear, and you use it as a mirror to see yourself. What am I saying? The water was clean, the turbidity was but what do you see now? You don't even see that water. The levels of the water from where I come from have gone real down. Some of the rivers have even dried up in a place which used to rain through and we blame climate change, yes, partly, but we also blame ourselves because we've diminished the vegetation along the riparians from the sources of water where the rivers begin. We have cleared them. We have a responsibility, individual responsibility. And when you hear the president says, and actually indeed, if you were to have the 15 billion trees, we are looking into each individual, including our children, planting 300 trees per year, right? So it's not easy. Myself, I'm planting, growing 2,000 trees. This season. No, this season. I need to lead by an example. So that if you plant 200, I want to assume that the other 100 goes to you. So the situation, coming back to your question, is the situation is that bad. Countries which ideally used to have water in the rivers throughout, it has diminished. So it's that serious. So what happens in the places which used to see water flowing throughout in those rivers and streams? So what about places which used to have seasonal rivers flowing? They don't see them anymore. They don't see that anymore. So it's that bad. The situation is very bad.
The situation is very bad and very dire, you say. And yes, we can talk about climate change, but also we are partly to blame.
Yes.
As you say.
Yes.
I hear you. And just as you talked about the areas where people come from, I was looking at this particular article, which the Stars cover, and just going by what the Met Department has said, that expect more rains till May. This is what the weatherman said. Of course, this is amidst the drought and the issues of climate change we're dealing with, and we are very much aware that we've experienced the failed rain seasons, about 5 of them. But then he says that expect more rain till May. And he also did talk about the areas where, these rains perhaps will be expected till May. Areas of Western Kenya, as well. Western Kenya actually will also continue experiencing this rain even past May. But areas of coast will not be experiencing this rain. So we're looking at areas in this country or regions in this country whereby we'll continue experiencing rains while others won't continue. So even as we talk about the issues of climate change, and we look at it from a global perspective, from where you sit also with your experience, what would you attribute to the fact that some areas will be having rain and more rain whilst others just almost having nothing? What will this be happening?
It's what you've said. It's right. It's clearly climate change. And when we say climate change, it is change in climate patterns.
Okay.
These are erratic, we can say. And again, I said so many years ago, maybe say 40 years ago, you would predict that this time of the month, of the year, will be raining. And you plan yourself. But as you say again, the weatherman is saying it was going to be raining up to May, and the other part of the country, which ideally also need to be receiving some rain, is not. It's the same. The issues are climate change is here. Erratic weather patterns are here with us. And it builds up, and maybe it will bring us to something else. Why? It's a global phenomenon, because it's not only us. What somebody else has done elsewhere is also affecting us. And that's why we have these conferences, global conferences, to deal with this climate change. We had COP26 in Glasgow, and we had COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, and we are now coming to have a COP28 in Dubai towards the end of the year. What are we talking about? We are talking about what you're doing in your country is affecting what I'm doing, what affecting us in this part of the world.
Whether you like it or not.
Whether you like it or not. So that's why it's a global thing. It's a global concern that needs to be addressed. Because it all sums up to the erratic weather conditions and patterns in the world. So then it leads us to something else. What are we supposed to do about it?
Now you've just oriented my next question.
And we've I don't know whether you're going to ask another question, but in our part, we have a strategy as a country. The president is leading in that strategy of having 15 billion trees by 2032. That means it will take this country to 30% tree cover. Other countries have done the same. I mean, have done even better. They started early, maybe they realized a bit early, as it used to rain and we used to predict the timings of our rainfall and all that. It was still okay on this other part. That global phenomena, that climate change, erratic weather patterns had not actually affected this part of the world.
The African bloc.
Now it is with us.
Now, since we're on that climate change issue, let's just stick there for a moment, because over time we've talked about how we emit very little as far as this carbon emission is concerned. And you did touch on COP27, and I remember very well this was part of the issues that African leaders who were there were presenting. How then can first world countries finance the African bloc, given the fact that they had pledged to this? If my memory serves me correct, in terms of figures, about $80 billion annually. But even this pledge, they haven't honored it.
Yeah.
Yet we still keep reeling with these issues. We agree, we also play our part, but not to the extent to which we suffer.
Yeah. Others even want to run away from that commitment.
Oh yes, it even became an issue in COP27.
Yes, because fortunately the new president of the United States of America came in and he brought back the US to the table. Otherwise the former president was actually pulling out the US from the table because of that commitment. Now let me say this, and I'm sure somebody else will come to this station to address, because it's a whole topic that needs Kenyans to know and understand, because again it will affect us in one way or another. It will also help us because you are looking at the carbon. I'm sure that it would be, the question is, the pollution elsewhere affects the climatic conditions here, right?
Yes.
Not necessarily that we've really polluted our environment so much. We've done our bit, yes. We need to do something about it. But somebody somewhere has maybe polluted more than us. So I don't know. That is the framework of carbon credit, right? It means, for instance, most of the developed countries are mass producers. In the process of production, right, you emit so much because there's burning and combustion for you to have this. Let me give you an example. Everything we have, and I'm sure we need to change that. We need to pollute a little bit. Everything comes from China, majorly China, India, and other developed countries, which are major producers, right? In the process of converting the raw materials into a finished product, until, for instance, you have a very nice car that I say, oh, I need to drive a Harrier, or I need to drive a Mercedes. That process of until manufacturing process, until you get the finished product, fine product, has taken so much. And in the process of taking so much, it has taken so much of pollution, or rather emission, in the process of combustion in manufacturing process, right? Where does that emission goes to? Where does it go to? The gases emitted, where does it go? It goes to the environment, right? It goes to the atmosphere. What we share, we can share the physical boundaries here, but
the air,
and the global atmosphere is all of us. So when you pollute from China, pollute from Brazil, pollute from emit, let me say, I mean, that emission comes from various countries who are doing the serious production. It goes to the atmosphere. It affects us.
Whether you like it or not.
Whether you like it or not. And therefore, these arguments that these countries have not honored, those who are producing, the developed countries who have actually the mass production, who actually pollute more, they have not honored. What have they honored? Not honored. They ought to have honored giving us the resources that requires us to now mitigate climate change. How do we do it? We do it by, for us in Africa, planting trees, for instance, right? Because now we need to suck away that carbon that you've produced. We need to take away the carbon emission that is in the atmosphere. And how do we do it? The only process to do it is biological and geological. The biological way is afforestation and reforestation, right?
Plant more trees.
Plant more trees. What does trees do? Of course, the simple biology. If you land in your grade 4 maybe, will tell you what the trees does.
What they take in and what they give out.
Yes, what they take in and what they give out. So they take away, or they suck away the carbon dioxide, which are part of those gases from the atmosphere. And that's what it's termed as carbon credit. I don't pollute here, you pollute so much. I have these trees here, so give me the resources. Where will the resources go? And again, as the First Lady, I think the agenda is how then can we tap into this carbon credit so that even the communities can actually benefit? Because they are the ones who plant these trees. You remember the green jobs that we are talking about, creation of the green jobs?
270,000?
These are the ones who are doing it. They are the ones again who are going to protect and conserve that environment.
I hear you.
So that blanket of the canopy of those trees, they are the ones who ought to benefit from that.
I hear you. So just allow
But then the framework is being developed. I'm sure the division of the climate change in the ministry is still working on that to break it down, make it simple, and then of course make it fair.
I hear you.
Because what happens sometimes, and probably you off the cuff, sometimes some two people somewhere sit over maybe a cup of tea or a glass of beer and say, I have this forest here and I need credit here. That is what used to happen before we get the knowledge that
just allow me to backtrack a bit before you continue, so that you can also get context in simpler terms. So when you say carbon credit in simpler terms, how are we defining it? What exactly is this? Just very simple.
I don't know how simple I can go, but let me make it this way. And that's why I said somebody from the climate change ought to come here and take you the whole day about that. In simple, for us, for the Kenyans to understand.
Yes.
You let me use a country X, and let that country X is assume which country pollutes more, right?
So you're saying country X pollutes more?
Pollutes more. It has this so much metric tons of CO2 in there, right? But you need so much canopy, right? Because we are looking at biological sequestration, carbon sequestration. Carbon capture, I need to suck that emission from the atmosphere. Because I don't pollute myself here.
No, country Y does not pollute as much.
Let's say country Y is Kenya.
Yes.
And country X is that country which produces
which country
so much.
This is? Yeah.
I'm saying that country that right?
Yeah.
Has so much. If you were to visualize, you say, yes, so much tons, metric tons of carbon and CO2 gases in the atmosphere. Here, and let me give you a very interesting example. When you, and this, I can say this on television. When you look at the sky now, you may not see the sky because there's a lot of clouds, right? Here in Kenya, where is it, right?
Yeah.
But otherwise, when there was no rain, you could see the sky very clearly. You could see the plains
very clearly.
Clearly, right? In another country, for instance, China, I've been there more than twice. Any day, whether it rains or it doesn't rain, you will see something like clouds, right? But these are not clouds. These are just gases, pollution. You cannot see beyond 100 meters in that country. It tells you that's a serious country which produces so much, mass production. Therefore, it pollutes so much, right? So how do we then, and that it's not only limited to their space, it has moved all over. It is a global pollution. How do we then suck? How do we then capture that CO2 in the atmosphere? And that's why we are saying, we plant trees, we take our country to 30, 40, even 50%, right? It gives us leeway to even access more credit of carbon, and that will be a lot of resources. Yeah.
So then what happens to this analogy of us looking at it as a country, a company or organization having the permit to produce a certain amount of these emissions, and even as you respond to that, then have these countries violated this so that then they produce so much more as they need to manufacture, because you also equally benefit from whatever that we import from these countries?
Yeah, I think we have various protocols, and that's why I say the next speaker would come here and give you this. We have various protocols in terms of agreements of how much developed countries are allowed to produce this, because we know you have an economy to run, right? An economy to run. That economy, which is we regard it as a developed economy, and we have our economy, which we are developing, right? We've not even reached our levels in terms of how much we are allowed to. Them, they've even gone beyond the levels of pollution that they are allowed to, right?
They've exceeded
They've
that.
exceeded. And that's the reason why the negotiation is bring now resources so that we can compensate this country. It's like saying we compensate you for the time being for not producing so much, but even as you don't produce so much, we still buy from you. And even as we buy from you, you gain economically, but you still pollute the same environment that we all share. Therefore, can you give us the resources, right, as we plan and wait to manufacture and produce, in the meantime, to that level, you can compensate for the pollution that you run. And this is a country that can do that. And as we do that, we keep on planting trees, for instance. We do reforestation and all that, and that is biological sequestration or capturing of carbon in the atmosphere.
So then we can fully agree that indeed they have exceeded.
Yes.
They have done more.
But the question is,
than they need
they
to.
don't want to pay even that.
And that's what I
where
want
the
to
problem
find
is.
out. How then do we keep them accountable? What is there something we can do as an African bloc? Because truth be told, Professor, we are really honestly dealing with these adverse effects of climate change. And even as we talk about let's protect our water towers as we're discussing, let's continue planting trees, but hey, it is still happening. Is there a framework we can use to perhaps make them get accountable to whatever they have pledged?
The leadership of the world are very interesting leadership. Remember I said the former president of the US was actually pulling
away from this
kind of discussion, right? Pulling away means what? It's like you don't want to pay, right?
Yeah. So you just be dealing with your own issues.
And you say, now, and that was a bit, I don't know, it's complicated because as you are asking a question, you can't put guns in people's heads and say, if you don't do this. We are saying there are things that people can do, and maybe at some point when we were kind of frustrated, people say, okay, maybe all of us can go pollute your own environment. Is that the way to go? We perish together. We'll keep on talking, and we hope that there'll be leaders who will be able to be answerable, people who will be responsible. And I'm sure the current president of the US has done so much, Biden. He brought on board a serious team. And I think during Sharm el-Sheikh, I think I attended a meeting with I accompanied my minister in the discussion where the framework of this carbon credit was being discussed. And other countries like Colombia, I think I remember the representative from Colombia, I think the minister from Colombia, was saying, we are frustrated because everybody else is waiting for that framework, that global framework to be respected and then honored. You pay the money so that these other countries can do that. How else then can we, and let me take us back to the 5 billion trees by 2027 and 15 billion trees by 2032. I don't want to say it is not doable. It is doable, but we still need resources. We need serious discussion around that, and we need serious partners to give us resources. And one of the areas that we thought we are going to benefit from is, of course, the carbon credit facility. And again, as I told you, the president is very keen on this, and I think he's also keen, and very soon I think the framework will be on the table.
So now this informs why African leaders were really so big on ensuring that indeed this pledge by the first world countries is honored.
Absolutely.
Okay, I hear you. But also I just want to understand how we can leverage on this carbon credits, because while preparing for this, I actually did come across a study that was done in 2021. It indicated that about 15% of all carbon credits supplied in the 2 billion voluntary carbon markets were from Africa. So supplied 15% of this. So then how can we leverage on this so that we can also be able to perhaps produce more in caution, but again to our advantage and benefit? Because truth be told, again, it's very easy to say that we need that framework that first world countries need to honor, but maybe may not come sooner. But we can't be living at a standstill as we're waiting for them to honor this. So then how can we also as a bloc
I think
leverage?
As I said, we are working on a framework. I think framework is almost on the table. I think a question you'd also asked is, has anybody gotten something from this carbon. Has anybody really
How
gotten
does it
some
pay?
money? How does it pay?
I wanted to get this before I come to that.
It's good money, yeah, because because of the same framework and who needs and who qualifies and where and all that. And you have some places. I don't know that you maybe Google later on. There's a community known as Mikoko Pamoja. I think in Kilifi, which I think they were given a check of 1 million shillings or 2 million shillings last year. These benefits have actually started coming in.
Okay.
Right? But I think when we say we want the framework to be very clear, is to get our act together, so that there are also very interesting people outside there who comes in and say, I want to negotiate, I'm negotiating for this company, I'm working for this, let's sign an agreement, then we get it done and then you get the credit, right? Now, I think we are now in the process when we are talking about the issues of the framework. Eventually we'll have a comprehensive carbon register, carbon credit register. And we are saying this community deals with this particular forest. For instance, say Kenya Water Towers Agency, we are custodians of, say, Loita Forest, for instance. It's a serious canopy of forest. And there's a way, and of course in the framework, there's a way of which you're going to measure how much carbon that particular forest can sequester or can capture, right? In that way, then computation then follows how much you paid for. And who then is going to be your client. Are you getting it?
I do.
So those are the things that we are being done now, so that when that framework is there, it's clear. We're also going to, eliminate some of the fraudsters who are going to negotiate. I said some sit somewhere and over a bottle of beer and discuss this issue and sign and say we've had this community and we've entered into an agreement and now we are going to pay you this. So that's how it is, and I think when that is clear, and I'm sure, as I said again, under the ministry, under the Department of Climate Change within the Ministry of Environment, these issues are going to be sorted very soon.
So indeed it does pay?
It will be very clear.
Okay.
And even payment now will be very clear.
It will be very clear. So indeed it does actually pay?
Yes.
It does pay, and it does pay well.
Yes.
So then one would understand then, if this is the structure, indeed it does pay well, and the framework is being worked on, and everything's going to be clear, crystal clear, as we say, does it expire?
There will be contracts, again, in that framework. There will be contracts, because when you pay something or you pay for something, it's for a period of time. It doesn't expire. It means probably maybe Mitsubishi company, which produces cars in Japan, for instance, will enter into a contract with you, right? And they'll be paying maybe $5 million within a period of 5 years to this particular community, which is this particular forest and all that, right?
Okay.
After that, maybe the figures will have also changed. The amount of you need to pay for a credit per ton will have also changed. So all that will be in that framework.
Okay, so that's why we need that framework in the first place.
Yes, it doesn't go indefinitely.
Yeah. All right, I hear you. And also I want us to look at issues of floods and just how does that come about, because it's so easy for us to keep saying oftentimes that indeed we have been having failed rain seasons and we have reeled a lot with issues of drought. We have seen over time animals dying, livestock that is, Kenyans, people dying because of the issues of drought. But now the rains are here and we have floods. What is this disconnect? Is there a way that we can conserve this water, that it will be of benefit to a later time? And what practical way can we do this?
Okay.
Yeah.
Probably we need to start from what has gone wrong. Probably, right? And I'm sure also very soon you'll have time to probably interview somebody from National Water Harvesting Authority. Maybe you didn't know that we have that kind of
water harvest. I know the
Water Harvesting Authority.
Yes.
What do they do? When do they need to harvest such kind of water? But let me go back to my water towers.
Yes.
In the definition I gave you, there was an element of percolation and retention. What does it mean? Because you are supposed to trap the water from the precipitation so that the water can infiltrate into the the topography which is qualified to be a water tower, right? In absence, what makes it not to retain water? All right?
Yeah.
So in absence of, or rather because of things that we've done, we've cleared the vegetation, right? We've been tilling the soils around that vegetation and all that.
Yeah.
We have actually impacted negatively on that particular water tower, which ideally ought to have captured, in simple terms, capture this water during the precipitation like this, right? This is rainfall. Another term for that is that precipitation. This is the process. Now, when it rains, the water goes down. We need to capture. Then the water sinks slowly, infiltrates into the soil, what I say, percolation.
Yeah.
And then later on, discharge through those, the rivers and streams and all that. It doesn't happen anymore. What happens is, it rains now, and there will be something known as surface runoff. All the water will run off from the surface. If you, I mean, when it rains and you drive along any road here, you'll see a lot of water, you know. But again, this is a city. If you go to the village, wherever, it rains and you see a lot of water running. That's known as surface runoff. Why? Because nothing is holding the water anymore. When we do the 5 billion trees and probably up to 15 billion trees, then we'll have improved retention of water in our soils in various topographies. That will reduce, right? And then if that reduces, we reduce the surface runoff. What we are seeing is a menace of the surface runoff. When it runs like that, it goes direct to the streams and it goes direct to the rivers and goes to the lakes. Finish. Within another 1 week, it's dry. We need to reverse that. And how are we going to do that? Planting trees again. So you see,
there's no mechanism except just greening our environment.
Because greening will hold the soil together. The trees will soak this water. It will stop the velocity of how the water is hitting the ground. All that.
Okay, I hear you. So you are saying greening is the only solution to this menace?
Yes, but then of course, mechanically, we can, you're still dealing, and I'm sure somebody from the Water Harvesting Authority ought to come and discuss that, is then how? Because greening, yes, but even if we green today, if we start the process of growing trees, it will take us probably a period of 7-8 years, right?
Yes.
That is why we bring in also the element of bamboo.
Okay.
Because bamboo takes a very short time to grow and to hold the soil together, right? And it reaches majority within 5 years. Good enough.
Okay.
So those are tactics and techniques that we want to use. But then, of course, I was discussing with members of Mandera, where now they're anticipating a lot of rain. I mean, the rain is here, a lot of water is going, and they also feel now this is the right moment to tap the water. What are you going to do? And you've heard the president talking about serious dams.
That's what I wanted to ask, because then can we look into that as well? Because it talks about 100 mega dams.
Yes.
And of course, you've seen some of these dams already in the process of construction. For instance, the Thwake Dam, I think, is about 70% in terms of construction. Just the other time, we did open the Thiba Dam in Tharaka-Nithi. So there's, can this also be one of those avenues we can use to trap?
Those are part of the solutions, but you're looking in, now if you're looking at surface runoff in other places like now Mandera, which ideally is not necessarily rivers, but you want to hold water which ideally needs to be flooding and going away. Can we build serious dams which will hold this water for a period of maybe 2 to 3 years? That will help.
Okay. So then we don't keep saying, yes, we don't have rain, it's drought, now we have rain, it's flood, and sometimes we really can't get the connection.
How can you hold this water for a period of time?
Just like the other time, in fact, even today on the papers, we are seeing floods sweeping away.
Yes.
Is it in areas of, where did I see that? In Kajiado?
Right, yes.
That county experiencing floods. In fact, children are even at home. So when you have no rain, they're at home because of drought, they can't get food. Now we are having rains, they're at home because of floods.
Absolutely.
And sometimes you really can't get the connection between these two scenarios. But again, also, there's another thing I want us to address before we, cede ground or we leave this particular set. And this is again one of those things that we are seeing the water CS, that is Alice Wahome Drew, this water sanitation and irrigation cabinet secretary. Just yesterday, she was in Kilifi County launching a 29-kilometer pipeline water project, and this was to deal with challenges of water, in that particular county. But one thing really, was my point of concentration, and that's why we keep saying oftentimes that public participation is good, because some residents in that county were saying that indeed this is a good project, what the ministry or what the government is doing is good, but also saying that this particular 29-kilometer pipeline is very far from where they live. So then can we also concentrate on water pans, for instance?
Oh, yeah.
How do you speak to this, and how easy and quick can this be, so that then we don't really just get into big, because millions of shillings what was being talked about for this particular kilometer, but then you realize it's going to serve perhaps a specific set, because for the other ones they're very far from where this is. How do you address these issues when it comes to dealing with these challenges of water?
I think the context of that I've not read it, but as you say, the minister,
from where you sit.
But from where I sit, I think there are things you've mentioned about. I think it builds up to the other question that we are talking about in Kajiado. I think it has not been raining, and sometimes I sympathize with my friends. I have colleagues who work with me from that region
in
Kajiado region generally, and it's not Kajiado alone. Kajiado all the way to Mandera, which they've not been seeing rainfall. Now it is raining too much in abundance, and people cannot go. And what can we do about that? Again, we mentioned that we need to do the you call them the water pans. If you think it qualifies to have a serious dams, that those ones can be done. That in the short period of time, it can address those issues. Now, coming to what the CS was doing, that is good. But then, of course, the network of that piping needs to be improved. But again, you said the water pans as well is something else that can also help communities, right? Rather than using maybe, I'm sure, I said again, I didn't, the context of that is probably it's a supply and distribution of clean water for drinking and all that. But again, for the livestock is something else that probably we need to, in that region, because, I think it is linked to the Tana Delta region. We need to do an improvement on the water pans, because ideally the economic activity of those people is they are like, do I call them nomads? But the people also who have animals to feed livestock and all that. Technology also needs to come on board in these things that we are talking about. And I expect you to ask this question: what can we do? Because I would give you an example of a country that we are talking of water scarce country. As Kenya, but we are seeing a country which you don't see rain. I've been trained in that country. Israel is a country I'm talking about, and for a period I've been there twice for 3 months. You don't see. I've not seen rain there, but they'll tell you they have enough water from the Sea of Galilee for them to drink. But then you ask yourself, they export oranges and some cereals. Where do they get the water for that?
Leverage on technology.
So technology is very, very crucial, whereby you can even clean the sewage system that we have. That's what they've done in that country, to a level that you can use the water clean from the sewage to irrigate. And that's what they've done. They do that, and they pump the water to a southern part of Israel known as the Negev Desert, and they produce the cereal. So technology is very, very crucial. They also use reverse osmosis, which of course we know it's a bit expensive, but then of course it uses more power. But then of course they have moved it to use solar, which is clean technology, clean energy, don't pollute. You require so much power, but you get it from solar, which is a clean energy, and therefore you eventually get the clean water from reverse osmosis, from water from the sea. So technology is something else.
I mean, we keep saying oftentimes that we are never short of ideas. Good ideas, they are there, as you say. We only have a challenge of implementation. So I hope whatever we've discussed here can actually be implemented for the benefit of the Kenyan.
The discussion has started, and the president is taking the leadership.
Okay, I hear you. Professor Julius Tanui, the CEO Director General.
It means the same
It means
thing.
the same thing.
CEO is well.
Okay. CEO Kenya Water Towers Agency has been my guest for the past 60 minutes, of course, just looking at where we are as a country as far as issues of climate change is concerned, what we can do to alleviate that issue, and also looking at water conservation as a whole in this week of climate change. Good place to end this conversation, but we also have an interesting discussion just coming away after this breather, so stick around for that.
You still haven't told him what you wanted to say yet.
It doesn't matter. What matters is you found him, and he found you, and you two are together.
It's in your best interest for us to meet.
I don't think we need to meet.
Please don't refuse so quickly. Mr. Lin, why don't you pick a date and place?
Mr. Bai, you're too serious, really. Don't be so serious. Can you relax a bit?
How can I relax now? Pretending that we're just friends?
Yeah.
Wacha nipelekwe tour na my daughter. Lakini si hizi nyumba tu zinakaa tu za ushago. Kwanza hata mabati hizi si ni ushago.
Niko safe ama unataka kusettle all scores?
Akili, malipo ni hapa duniani.
Sawa na wewe msoro, busybody. Na kwako kuna chomeka pole. Mosmos.
I can see why she likes you.
You are too smart to be a house help.
But too broke to finish school.
Mwanaume mzima umpatie 50 by 100. Hiyo haiwezekani. Jabali anakuja huku over my dead body.
Dada amenipatia nini?
A whole house.
Nyumba peke yake.
Niko serve nini?
Nilete chai na mkate na tumayai. Na mayai zenyewe upike macho.
Ulipata safe house ya Sam. Niluka imechomeka. Is he dead?
Kibetu mwana hiyo? Kuna kitu hapo. Mwana hiyo baki jamaa yake ni bahati bana.
Imani hajakuwa kenda shule for 3 days sasa.
Nilipata ile lori ya juzi. Tutatumia fake and break. 2 teams, stealth incursion, in and out in under 20 minutes.
Ukiharibu hii nyumbani.
Now, according to the 2019 census report, 5.3 million Kenyan youths out of the possible 13.7, this amounts to 39% are still currently jobless. And this is what continues to create the sharp divide between the rich and the poor in Kenya. This is why possible interventions are being marred, particularly when it comes to getting skill-based education TVET's institution, vocational training, and revamping all this to just ensure that at least we can bridge this gap and reduce on the number of unemployed youths in the country. This is what I'm set to converse in the next 35 minutes with my guest. That is Dr. Esther Moria, Principal Secretary, TVET's. Welcome, Daktari.
Thank
and
you.
Just first things first.
Yes.
Because yours was a very peculiar, interesting case. Why? November last year, hours after just being sworn in as the county secretary in Embu, the president nominates you to the Ministry of Education as PS TVET's. What was going through your mind at this point?
I was amazed. Let me say, at most, thank you very much, first of all, for having me. It's a pleasure. It was amazing. Because I was sworn in as the county secretary for Embu on the 1st of November on a Tuesday evening, and the following day, and I started actually taking over the office. The following day, we had a battery of meetings with the governor. So I was with my predecessor. We were having one meeting after the other, and then. And we would have a meeting at the boardroom, then in the governor's office, because we had very many meetings. And then at one point, as we are passing through the corridors, the people around the corridor start asking me, "Oh, madam, you don't want to celebrate?" And I thought they were telling me to celebrate my getting sworn in the county secretary, and I was too busy even to pay attention. So at one point we were having the Embu professionals meeting with the governor. So we went in, and since I know them anyway, I wasn't very keen on them introducing themselves. So that's when I picked my phone just to check as the introductions were going on. And then I see there is a nomination. I was so shocked. I was so surprised. Now I can't walk out of the meeting, and because
you hadn't expected this.
No, I hadn't really expected it, but I had applied. I had gone for the interviews, and I was waiting like everybody else. And then, wow, I see the nomination. I was very surprised, pleasantly surprised, and the rest of the day I was in some kind of limbo. I have a lot of work here to do, and I have the nomination now to appreciate. It was a heart-rendering experience.
Nonetheless,
yes.
3 months later, this is now around February, almost getting into March.
Yes.
As the principal secretary in the Ministry of Education, particularly TVET's, and this is where your heart is. And just looking at what the State Department of TVET's is doing, talking about identifying vocational education as a pathway for green jobs. First of all, what does this even mean?
You're right, Doreen. This is. I got into a space, okay, still coming from education background, I got into a space that has become very exciting for me. Why? I see it as a space that is capable of transforming the youth of this country, as a space that is going to change, that should change the job story in this country, and a space that could even transform this country to another level of development. Why? Because I remember when we had technical institutions in this country, like people were going to Kagumo Teachers Training College, and then there was Nyeri technical training college. When we had the real technical colleges, some of which were transformed into universities, we produced people who are able to do a lot of technical work. Like there's a time we used to have the agricultural extension officers trained in these middle level colleges, and they were doing tremendous work. Then we started overemphasizing, maybe for the right thing, on the university education. And I think we need to trace our steps back there, because we need the technical people in this country. When you go out there now looking for a plumber, a person who can do real plumbing work, they are not there. When you look for people who can weld meticulously, they are not there. So we need to retrace our steps. We need to tell our youth that this is where real employment, because I have for a while now told a story of a house I saw because I've been in Jomo Kenyatta. Yeah. So I've been going through Roiro every day, and I saw a building coming up. And I saw it completed, and I'm the same person who still saw water oozing through the walls. That means you can imagine the kind of plumber who did that work. I saw it coming up, and I saw the water pouring when I'm still on that road. So what we are saying is that the skill set in this country needs to be rethought in a very serious manner. And this, Doreen, I can tell you, I am very passionate about, because I have real experience of skill sets that are missing in this country, not just in this country, but even internationally. We have been told, we have been asked for people to work outside this country who have the skills. We don't have them, and they're needed. And then like even our younger sisters who are going to look for jobs in the Middle East, and they end up in trouble. You know why? Because they don't have the housekeeping skills. They are necessary. This is a girl or a young woman who has come from the village. She's never seen a microwave. Those are the things they're finding in the kitchens of these ladies in these countries. So we need to get them, bring them to our institutions, skill them in modern house management, and then they can go and get pertinent jobs there, and they're going to earn a lot of money in form of dollars. So for me, I see this as a space which we can change a lot of things, not only for in terms of the employability of our youth, but also in terms of having a lot of foreign exchange flow back into this country.
Yes. But you've said something very pertinent, which I'd like us to broach a little bit further. When you touched on the particular issue of churning out more universities, because you did talk about Nyeri, you talked about Kagumo, and just almost recently we had our very own Kenya Polytechnic being transferred to Technical University of Kenya. Oh yes. So do you think this was a downsize on our part as a country, such that we are sort of like collapsing TVETs and making them university institutions at the benefit of who?
Doreen, I think for the benefit of Kenyans, and that was the thinking then. That was the thought line then, and we may not really be able to blame anyone for that thinking, because just like we did with the girl child, a point came when we thought the girl child was down there. We overemphasized the issue of the girl child. Now the girls, oh my goodness. Now we are going back to the boy. Same story. We had it right. Maybe it was good to emphasize on university education, and to really think that we all needed to get to that space. We needed to encourage our youth to get to that space. Okay, we have been there long enough. Now can we? And then in the process, just like I've given the analogy of the girl, we realize, no, there's somebody we left behind. The skills. We left the skills behind. So we need to retrace our footsteps and go back there and start pushing it up all over again. We need to start communicating to our youth and telling them this is the space to go, and showing them the benefits. We even need to talk to ourselves. We who are in government, let me tell you, it is not everybody who is still looking at it from the same lenses like me and you. Maybe there are those who still think we should stay in this space which we had already created. So we had reasons to push the university agenda up, but we have now done it enough. Can we now go back, like we are going back to the boy child, and now tell everyone it is about skills? This is what we need in this country. This is what we need out there.
And you're talking about skills.
Yes.
So then, from where you sit,
yes,
how then do we start reorienting these young people? Because look at this. Going by that 2019 census report, 5.3 million Kenyan youths out of the possible 13.7 million are still jobless.
Yes.
And what we know over time is that go to primary school, go to secondary, go to university, go get a white-collar job. How do we begin reorienting their minds to start thinking of even vocational training, skills, TVET? What do we do?
I am not underestimating the extent of the work that must be done here. We have spoken and we have overemphasized the white collar space for a long time until it has become a culture. Culture change, Doreen, is not easy, but it's got to be done. So what I am doing at the department, for instance, right now, I have come up with what we call national information and a communique. Really, we are calling it NITCAS. I'm getting the name in communication and advocacy strategy. A communication and advocacy strategy, where we want to get all the people who can speak my language to speak into it, and we get like you people in the press to blow it up, so that we put it everywhere in our first languages, on all the media, and we even have the road shows where we need to leverage on whatever we can to preach this gospel, that it is not all lost to go to a Tibet institution and get skilled. And we want to show the benefits of getting these skills. And we want to tell them that the government and other working partners that we are working with are ready to help us to be able to place them in the skilled areas, both locally and even internationally. So we are coming up with that communication strategy, where we are going to, we are working with even people like Safaricom, who are going to help us get this message across. We are going to work with people like you, or the media houses, and we are going to preach the gospel. The other thing we are doing is that we are changing the face of our institutions, and we are speaking with the Council of Governors, where the VTCs, the Vocational Training Institutes, what we called village polytechnics, formerly, are placed, because that is where the youth who are really in the village, we need to encourage them to go there. But so we are working, like I've said, with the Council of Governors, so that we are able to speak to them to upscaling even the face of these institutions, so that we can encourage our youth to go there, because nobody wants to go to a place that looks dilapidated, But when you look at our other colleges, the government has done a lot. They are beautiful. When you go to Alvist, go to Eldoret National Polytechnic, go to Kabete here. They are beautiful institutions. Kabete Polytechnic, or it is National Polytechnic. They are beautiful places to be in, so that we encourage our youth and tell them these are the places to be in, and just like any other child going to school, they can access help loans. We already have funding from government at about 60%. So for the rest, they can get help loan. They can get all these funding facilities that are available for them to be able to be in school. So we want to preach the gospel, and I am determined to pick it up from where I have found, and be able to encourage as many youth as possible. Then we have what we call the Kenya National KNQ Qualifications Authority, where there are very many people who know how to do things. They do akali, but they are not certified. Artisans? The artisans, they are not certified. So we want to bring them. We want to do what we call recognition of prior learning, so that we are able to see at what level they fit. We are able to certify them, so that now they can also get engaged even across the country. The other thing we are doing is we want to work very hard to get international or other institutions training the same skills that we want to train, so that we get a double certification, where you can get a certificate from our institution and also an institution, say in Germany, like you are a welder who is recognized both in Germany and in Kenya. So we want to do that dual training, and we are looking for ways of getting really dual certification for our, so that they are internationally recognized. And when we take this message out, they'll be interested. They'll be encouraged to come to our space, and they can be recognized across the waters.
I hear you.
Yes.
Certification of the students,
yes,
and also just trying to ensure they are going to be learning in a good space.
Yes.
At least also make those that feel like TVET, just you go to a TVET when everything is not working.
Yeah.
But that's what you're trying to do away with.
Yes, to ensure that things are working.
Yes.
The government has helped us come up with good trainers. I can assure you, Doreen, our trainers, our principals are good. Yes, they know what they're doing. They are well placed in their space. The government is in the process of recruiting another 1,300 trainers for us, among others. We actually requested right now for 3,300, but we've been allowed right away to recruit 1,300, so that they have trainers. And again, we are working with industry, and we are changing our curricula also to ensure that our trainees are 70% in industry, because we want them to be hands-on trained. We are working with our development partners. Time they are through with their education, they are actually skilled. We are also changing our assessment space, so that even the examinations, the assessment that is going to be done, it is going to be skills-based. It is going to be practical-based, not theory anymore.
Well said.
Yes.
Now, Dr. Mercy, quite a lot to talk about in regards. Dr. Esther, sorry. Talk to me about that idea of looking at TVETs in terms of creating job opportunities in infrastructure, development, manufacturing. What mechanisms have been put in place? And even just from where you sit in your ministry, Dr. Esther, what are you doing as far as that is concerned?
Employability.
Yes.
I think right now, Doreen, what I want to run away with, what I am running with right now, is putting the correct curricula in place. Because as we speak now, Doreen, if a company came into Kenya today and they want 1,000 plumbers to work with, where would I get them from? They are not skilled. We actually will not get them. So I am not even thinking about the level of employability now. I am thinking and concentrating on change of curricula. Curricula has to be changed. Curricula has to be reworked to the skills space, where we are going to graduate a student in plumbing, in welding, in absolute housekeeping, in hairdressing, among others. So I may not even think about employability now, because who am I going to tell your industry that they can employ right now? Where, without skills, where are the welders? Where would I get the welders from? So I am taking time, and I would and this is what we are speaking about in ministry right now, where the concentration right now is on skills, where we are going to ensure that we are breaking curricula into the skills set, so that in a few years time, then we are going to say we can employ all 1,000 youth in this industry. But right now, Doreen, they are not there.
Training is where the focus is right now.
Training and curricular change and development is where the focus is right now. And that is why I am saying, yesterday we spent a whole day with the principals speaking into this. And we are in agreement that we are going to rework the curricula so that we have the skill set trained and graduated. Then we can talk about, well, because we are also having the housing, the presidential housing scheme going on, we are speaking to our institutions and we are telling them, like those who have been training in building technology, they should work in that scheme. And any other government major project coming up, our students should be able to go there, so that we are calling it TVET on wheels, so that they are able to train as the work is going on. But for me, that is not where the focus is right now. The focus is, like I have told you, on building the pertinent skills.
I hear you. Yes. Well said. Now, that you are talking about curriculum, and this is also where your focus is highly built on. Right now, we are still on the CBC, as is the competency-based curriculum. Do you think this is the silver bullet? Is this what you had been needing for the longest time, to begin the reshaping as early as toddlers?
I think so. I think CBC is the way to go. And what is so exciting for me about CBC is, well, the beginning of the skill set from that age, but also the culture, the child culture training, where we are adopting like a culture child training, like I've seen in Japan, where a child will even tell you thank you for the smallest thing you have done. I went to my mother church not too long time ago, and a child came to me and told me, "Excuse me, madam, you are very smart." that niceness, for lack of a better word, that CBC is training our child to be. Because Doreen, you and me will agree that you can be very well trained. You can have gone to the highest level of education or even skilling, but when you are a nice person, you are not a nice person, nobody wants to work with you. So character shaping is so admirable to me as far as CBC is concerned. And secondly, by the time that child is out of either primary or secondary education, because I am a respecter of the fact that we all are not equally endowed. And I've always told people, we all don't have to be university professors. We all don't have to be doctors like me, but you can be the best at where you are. So by the time this child is out of primary or secondary, they have a very good idea of which space they would want to be. Because for me, even when I was still at the university, a lot of people would come and ask me, "Madam, which program do you think I can fit into?" And my question would always be, what is it that you feel you want to do? Where is your excitement? You know? So for me now, with CBC, by the time this child is at a certain level, they are quite aware of really where they would like to go, and it will be very easy for me and even the university level to skill them.
Well said. And we can clearly all agree that CBC is the way to go. However, Madam PS, it will be a bit of a disservice for me not to ask this question. Given you sit in the Ministry of Education, much as it's inclined towards TVET, and there's been concerns, particularly from parents, learners alike, various stakeholders, because even as we speak, there are some schools where teachers are not yet there. Learners already reported, on 30th of January, about 2 weeks back. What is the ministry doing?
The ministry is doing everything they can. Let me tell you, Doreen, things in the ministry or in the government space, because of the bureaucracies and many other things, do not happen overnight. Like they could be happening in KBC. So yes, I know the TSC has been working very hard, honestly, to come up with the number of teachers that there are. Everything may not be rosy right now, but I know my colleague, Dr. Mbelio, is on his feet. I know my boss, CS Mashogu, is on his feet to make sure things happen the way they should. They may not be overly rosy right now, but we are not sleeping in the ministry. We are doing whatever it takes. I know that recruitment is going on. It may not happen overnight, but it will eventually come to be. But that might be a bit of a downside. But when you look at the upside, at least the students are in their institutions, though they might be waiting for the they might be waiting for the facilitator, but at least they are in their space. Maybe they are CBCing in the area of getting to know each other and getting to learn the much they can learn with the few teachers who are there. At least they are in their space. And me and you agree, we parents also appreciate when a child is able to go to school. They may not right now be getting 100% of what they want at the school space, but at least about 80%, if not more, is in place. And what is not in place, we are doing everything possible to bring it on board.
Madam PS, just allow me to ask you one last question as far as CBC is concerned. Yes, you're saying that almost 80% is in place, but there are also some other concerns. One teacher for 14 subjects, and we are talking about competency-based curriculum. We want to churn out skill-based learners who would even begin appreciating TVETs as early as then. Is this practical?
It may not appear rosy, and I think, Doreen, that is what I said earlier on, right now. Okay. Because everything starts with its own challenges. I agree. Yes. And eventually, we are going to walk there. The employing of teachers and even the boards, the school boards, we are encouraging them also to do as much as they can to be able to fill in this space, because we are Kenyans. We must help one another. The President Ruto has said that he came to a space where even money was a problem. So all of us Kenyans have got to work together, have got to support one another to be able to do what must be done there as we dream of a more rosy situation to come in due course.
Well said. Kenyans who are listening to you, what would you want them to know, even as we talk about reorienting our minds as a country, moving away from just thinking about white-collar jobs, thinking about universities as the only place to get education of higher learning, as we try to sort of like begin to get attracted to TVETs and vocational training and skill-based kind of learning? What would you want them to know?
I want Kenyans to know that we walk a certain path, a space or a time of rethinking our direction and our doing things does come. This is it. Even Paul in the Bible was going somewhere, and when he got to Damascus, something happened, and he has to rethink and he has to rethink his direction. I am not saying we have been treading as dangerous a path as Paul, but what I am saying is
we need to have a Damascus moment.
We need to have a Damascus moment. We need to arrive at Damascus. This for me is always a very good analogy, where we need to see what we have not done absolutely right and be able to rethink our space. And let me tell you, Doreen, it is not wrong to be wrong, but it is wrong to be consistently wrong. So, or out of space. So, we have done things in a certain way for a long time, and we need now to rethink, and we need to check what we need to do differently so that we can arrive at a different space which is going to be better than where we have been.
Well said. It is not wrong to do a wrong thing, but it is wrong to consistently and continually do it.
Yes.
I hear you. I have definitely been speaking to Dr. Esther Moria, who's the Principal Secretary TVETs, of course, just outlining for us what they're doing as a ministry as far as revamping TVETs institution is concerned, getting those skill-based graduates, and how basically we as a country can also reorient our minds to look and think about vocational training, skill-based kind of education.
2, Leipzig 1. The quarter-finals of the DFB Pokal.
And he's found Werner to Marco Reus.
Leipzig, Dortmund, a repeat of the 2021 final.